Hello everyone and welcome to the Meares Velodrome in Brisbane for the final night of competition of AusCycling's Track National Championships. Kate Bates, it's been a big 4 days so far and a little bit more if you include the under-17s and under-15s from the few days prior. And we're really set for another big night of racing to finish things off.
We absolutely are. We have the para sprint out on track, which is always a cracker, but the elite men's Omnium. Scott, we've got the women's points race as well. For the junior 19 women, they also have their Omnium. And let's not forget that for the junior 19 men, they have their scratch race and they also have their team's pursuit. So quite a lot of racing. We can see the para tandem sprint out on track now, and this is Candice Kennedy and Kelly Fetz against Carolyn Baird and Siobhan Aerosmith.
And you can see it's going to be a comfortable victory for Candice Kennedy. The South Australians, 12.06 in qualifying, and it doesn't really matter now because at the length of the straight they got the win by. So a strong performance from Candice Kennedy and her pilot Kelly Fetz. Caroline Baird, along with Siobhan Aerosmith, go one down in the best of three, so they do have a chance to come back. It's going to be tough for them, though. They'll have to really rethink what they'll do in the next race, because that was a very comfortable victory for the South Australians. Big night for the para sprinters, that's for sure. We will be seeing another new pilot into the paras for this year in Shane Perkins, the former Kirin world champion, making the transition to help out in paracycling. So great to see our former champions coming in to help out with the para athletes.
And next up on track, we will have the under-19 women. Scott, they're back on track. They've already had a big week, but for the Omnium. So this morning they had a couple of rounds. Sophie Meares is a name right up there in the standings. Not surprising after the week that she has already had. But Lucy Stewart, Meg Marker, Izzy Carnes, these are the names we've really gotten to know very well over the last couple of days. So Sophie Meares won the first event, which was the scratch race, but Izzy Carnes quite dominant in the tempo race. Overall, there's not a lot of gaps between them. Sophie Meares leading on 72 points, but Meg Marker and Lucinda Stewart both on 70, with Isabel Carnes on 68. So the closest Omnium at this point that we've had so far in the championships.
It's very tight, isn't it, between the top four in particular, and four disciplines of the Omnium, the scratch and the tempo that you mentioned, the elimination coming up, and then finishing off with the points race. Fair to say, and I did the Omnium obviously for the Olympic Games in Tokyo, the most difficult one to actually commentate is the tempo race, which was this afternoon. So we won't have to do that tonight. From our side of things as commentators, it does get really challenging to try and explain what's going on in the tempo race. That was on this afternoon. Going to be an elimination, which is pretty simple, isn't it? Last ride across the line will be the first one eliminated. And they're still lining up. And we can see the South Australian tandem riders coming off the track now. But the under-19 women are still on the infield lining up, so let's have a look at what's happening in the next couple of weeks here in Brisbane and southeast Queensland.
March 24 to April 14. Experience Australia's only fully closed road inner city bike ride, the Australian Unity Tour to Brisbane. Supported by free family entertainment at the Brisbane Showgrounds, including the Active Lifestyle Expo. Across the festival, enjoy world-class racing at AusCycling's Track Nationals and the Oceania Championships. The festival with something for every age and ability. Experience Brisbane on a bike. BrisbaneCyclingFestival.com.
We are not here on this planet to close our eyes to the world.
We are here to go out and experience its many wonders.
Because through our experiences,
We become bigger than ourselves.
travel has the power to shape our world.
And make us whole again.
With 30 hotel brands and endless experiences, where can we take you?
When you don't need to worry, there'll be days like this. When no one's in a hurry, there will be days like this. When all the parts of the puzzle start to look like they fit. My mama told me there'll be days like this. Mama told me there'll be days like this.
Stand by, comms. And just rolling off the start line, it's the third discipline within the 4-discipline Omnium for the under-19 women. It's the elimination, where we get to focus on the back of the field. Those of you that know cycling certainly understand this particular event. It's always a classic. Used to be really just in the carnivals, the Christmas carnivals and the Opens on the Velodrome. This was the event that everybody was excited to watch. Of course, it's become into the Olympic Games through the Omnium now as well. So the one race where we focus on the back of the peloton, last rider across the line every 2 laps eliminated. They get the minimum number of points to go to their overall standings. It's a tough race. It's a hard one in terms of physical ability required, Kate, but tactically it's so important.
So very important. You don't want to be sitting on the front the whole time because that is pretty exhausting, especially ahead of the points race. But it is often the case that people who think they're safe on the inside get caught out. We'll have our first rider eliminated, and that is rider number 109, Alana Rebar, the Victorian. Scott, she, with a lap to go, looked like she was in a pretty good, comfortable position, but it changes so quickly, and they really need to watch where they're sitting.
The rider at the back in danger this time is Elizabeth Green from South Australia. She was hovering around the back during that last elimination as well, and now she's on the inside, second last. It's Melinda Bailey that'll pop around the outside, and being on the inside, often you get boxed in. So Green in a bit of danger this time. Oh, and very close between her and Bailey at the top of the track, but I think it was down the bottom. Yes, Elizabeth Green from South Australia, second one to go.
Well, the riders, as they come out of the bend, they come with a little bit of speed around the outside, and it is the riders underneath who are stuck behind the riders leading out who aren't accelerating, who are just trying to stay at the front and stay out of trouble, and that's the difference. Trying to sit there in this kind of race versus where they're actually sprinting full tilt. But this race will be over pretty quickly. It's only 10 riders, so only 20 laps, which, is nicer than the points race, dare I say.
Bailey out of the saddle trying to get to the line, but she had to go 6 wide to try and come around the outside. Wasn't able to get enough speed to come over the top. So Belinda Bailey, the next one to go. Bronze medal in the under-19 Madison yesterday. And she was the rider of that team that went on the attack right at the end to pick up the points for the final sprint, which put them into third place.
And Izzy Carnes, the Queenslander, on the front of the bunch, trying to stay out of trouble. Now, she won quite convincingly the tempo race earlier. She's in good form, but Sophie Ma has backed up from the last couple of days.
Lucy Stewart
also be in the hunt.
Lucy Stewart is the rider that is going to be eliminated this time, so it's a huge thing to happen. Lucy Stewart, one of the favourites for the Omnium, and she was sitting equal second place overall, and an early elimination from her. So Sophie Ma, the overall leader, she'll be happy with that.
Well, they're T-baits. There might be a little bit of disappointment, but yeah, I think Meg Marker, the South Australian, will probably be thrilled with that, as with Izzy Carnes. A lot will come down to the points race because it is a number earned, but the Victorians need to stay out of trouble here.
Well, from New South Wales, the rider in danger now as she comes down to the line, and it's pretty clear that she's the next one to go. So Kira will
be out.
She is.
She is.
5 riders now left in the race, including Sophie Ma, who was boxed in down the back straight, but now she's got herself out into the first position, so that's where she'd expect herself to be. The overall leader is at the front of the bunch. It's the back of the bunch where we have to really focus. Who will be the next rider to go?
Well, Summer Nordmeyer needs to get out of trouble here. The lanky South Australian who fell in the Madison last night and wasn't able to continue, but still finished on the podium. I think she might be out. Between her and Carnes, it was pretty close. Oh, and it is Carnes that goes out. Number 53, so there is another kind of positive sign for Sophie Ma and Meg Marker. They're putting people between them and their major competition.
Back of the group now is Summer Nordmeyer. We saw her crash, unfortunately, in the under-19 women's Madison. And obviously she was okay, her bike wasn't, didn't continue and finish the race, but she's back here today, struggling a little bit at the back of the group. Meg Marker, her teammate in front, also losing a wheel a little bit, but Nordmeyer not able to get over the top. So Nordmeyer from South Australia out, but Marker, the other South Australian, looked as if she was struggling a little bit then as well.
But we've actually seen this a couple of times in the racing this week, in the points race the other night, it looked like. And it happened again in the Madison last night. She looked like she was written off and then performed in the next sprint.
And she has gone around into second position. So smart riding there from Meg Marker to not be the easy target at the back of the group. Ma leads them down the back straight. Sophie Sutton trying to come around. That's the Victorian in third position. And Sophie Sutton is going to get over. That was really close. We'll wait for confirmation because all three of those riders super close. And Sophie Ma, the overall leader, is the next rider eliminated. So Meg Marker doing a fantastic job. I'd written her off only 2 sprints ago.
And this keeps happening with her. I don't think she puts on the rock and roll. She's got no poker face, but she is just tough as nails.
Short sprint she wants. We know that she's super quick, and it's only almost half a lap to go now, and the gap has already opened up. Here comes Sutton, though. Marker needs to really put some pressure down if she wants to come away with the win here in the elimination. I don't know if it's going to happen. She wasn't ready for that attack from Sutton, and it's going to be close to the line. Marker will be the one eliminated. A little bit of an error there. I think she felt that she'd opened up a big enough gap to get the win, and Sophie Sutton said, thank you. Thanks for leaving the door open. I'll come straight round.
Well, that was a sensational ride by Sophie Sutton. She's been riding into form today. It has been a big week for all of them, but she wasn't as successful in the tempo race and the scratch race. But it looks like she's come back tonight, Scott, with a bit of a different approach because that was a really very patient and very solid ride. And I'm wondering with the Victorians what they may do in the points race, Scott, because we have to consider that there are 4 riders who will remain very close on the overall, and then Sophie Sutton's not too far behind. So that will put 3 Victorians in the top 5. Do they work together for the first half of the points race? Do they just see who's on top? It's a bit of a question. There's a lot of depth, and any one of the Victorians could end up with the gold medal. But if they start working against each other, then Meg Marker or Izzy Carnes will be the ones that benefit from it.
Well, change in leadership, that's for sure. The overall point standings, it was Sophie Ma, but she will move down as Meg Marker goes into the lead with 1 discipline still to come. The points race to finish things off for the under-19 women's Omnium. And it's a big night of Omniums because the elite men are now coming up onto the track for their elimination elements of the overall Omnium. The speed will come up several notches for this one.
It's Josh Duffy who is on fine form today, but I feel like we need to have an eye on him to see if he has the legs, the tall Tasmanian. We're looking at him on screen right now, number 84. Now, Scott, he's currently leading the Omnium. He's 2 points ahead of Victorian Graham Frisley, but more than that, he actually won the kilometre time trial in between the Omnium rounds this afternoon in a 1 minute .106. So an exceptionally fast time to beat Byron Davies in a 1 minute 185. So he's clearly on form, but will that come back to bite him tonight and catch up with him? I think a lot of the riders will be wanting to capitalise on perhaps a little bit of fatigue creeping in.
Both those riders so close to going under the 1 minute barrier. And Josh Duffy, as a team pursuit specialist, not a sprinter, so to do a 1 minute flat, that's extraordinarily fast for a team pursuit rider. Extra race in the legs for him hasn't seemed to have bothered him too much as he leads the elite men's Omnium overall. The Tasmanian at the top of the track, second place getter for now in the standings is Graham Frisley down the bottom of the track in the Victorian colours. This is their elimination for the elites. And they'll have a neutral lap to keep themselves in formation. And there's these neutral laps in the elite category of the elimination in a big field like this are always super fast. Everyone very quick to get themselves into position. So they have given them a gun, even though there's some gaps in the field. Kimberly Conti has, shout out to Kimberly Wells if she's a former cyclist, if
G'day,
she's
Kim.
watching. But Kimberly Conti did get the race underway very quickly, and Stephen Hall was rapid to get to the front. Now he's been taken over by James Moriarty.
So the same race that we just saw with the under-19 women, except that there's 22 riders out on track rather than 10, so it's more than twice the distance, and they have to start fast.
Kane Richards is the Queenslander in danger right at the very back, and there it is. So 2 Queenslanders across the line at the end, but Kane Richards was the last across the line. So fairly new to track cycling, Kane. Been very good on the road this year. Made the transition across to the ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast team for the National Road Series. First man to go from the elimination. You can see how bunched up it is. It's a real fight for position. If you get stuck in underneath, that's the easiest place to ride because you're really in the draft of the peloton, but you're in danger of getting boxed in and not getting across the line effectively. Tresize, I think, from Queensland was the next one.
It's a great place to be in a points race or a scratch race underneath because you can follow the wheel in front of you. Now, they're calling number 130 Calvin Sim out, Scott, so they might be seeing something we're not.
Yeah, and look, I am wearing glasses these days, but I really did think it was Declan Tresize, so he dodged it.
Yeah,
there,
that was
Declan.
good. I'm glad he did dodge that. They'll come out with another rider eliminated now. New South Wales not looking good. Oh, but again.
Down the bottom.
Down the bottom. The bottom is catching them again. That's number 63, Angus Miller. The South Australian is out.
Young rider, first year in the elite category, and Harvey was really playing with it at the back of the group, and again in a little bit of danger now. It's Ben Harvey down in the back and just giving himself a little bit of distance. You can see that he's going to drop down underneath perhaps. He thinks maybe there's enough room so he won't get too boxed in. It's a dangerous manoeuvre. It's going to be okay because Villani is the rider to go, the Victorian. Interesting tactics from Harvey. Smart riding, actually. He's got himself a few more positions from the back this time, so less danger for him. Tresize, again, in a little bit of danger, though, right at the back of the group. 2 Queenslanders now fighting for that last position.
It's not a good place to be in an elimination, but you do tend to have 2 different styles of riders, one who just stick to the front and go, and the others who try and tick it off at the back, but every single time it makes it a bit nervous. I actually think it might have been Dalton Stretton. It is that got called out. I always think he's my Smokey in these races because I think he's got so much pizzazz on the bike. But
he just got smoked.
That was pizzazzless.
Yeah, he just totally got smoked. Tresize, again, I've said that name a few times now, and the names I'm not mentioning are the big strong riders at the front of the bunch that are way out of trouble. We haven't mentioned Josh Duffy, Connor Lay, Graham Frisley. We've mentioned Tresize a few times. He's going to go through this time. It's okay. He does go through, but it's his teammate that's the next one to go. Finn Walsh. And Tresize, if you can see when they pan to the back of the bunch, you will see, again, sitting at the back. He's enjoying teasing everyone and making it pretty tough for himself as well.
I think he's trying to give his coaches a cardiac condition.
Don't talk about heart attacks.
I know you.
These last couple of months.
Said that. I apologise, Scott. Sorry.
I'm that age.
No commentators curse. Well, no coke for you.
Though it was really close that time.
What is he doing? It's
Ben Harvey.
It's like he's a thrill seeker or something. These Queenslanders, all of them are doing it.
So Harvey goes out, and he was playing around a little bit at the back as well, but this time he goes out. Tresize. He has a tactic, and he just wants to pick off the second last rider each time coming into the straight. Can he do it again? He's done it a couple of times in a row now. Up around the outside, you can see there's an opportunity to box in the Western Australian, and it might even be the South Australian right down on the inside. It was Zach Marriage, so the winner of the points race has gone.
That's disappointing. He was going really well this morning in the qualifying and then the earlier rounds. So, but Queensland is bookending this. James Moriarty on the front. Tresize continues to ride right down the back, and he's in the company of Liam Walsh. Sooner or later, they will get caught out.
Oh, it's such a big effort every 2 laps to sprint to the back. So it's going to be a problem. Kurt Ether from New South Wales, definitely the rider out this time.
He hasn't had the Omnium I thought he would have so far. He's sitting just outside the top 10, and that performance won't move him up. But he does have the potential to have a very good points race.
Connor Lay, Blake Agnoletto, Josh Duffy, right at the front there, those first three riders. A bit of shoulder action between Duffy and Blake Agnoletto as well. Queenslanders, Trezise is the rider right at the very back. Has he got enough? I think he's given up this time, so we can see Declan Trezise this time the last rider out. He was sitting in 8th place overall on 56 points, so handy couple of races this morning or this afternoon. But sprinting every 2 laps, it's too much to ask.
Well, Liam Walsh is sitting in 4th, so he needs to move himself up. And maybe he's just been waiting until it comes down to about 10, but...
Some action at the back because it's Graham Frisley, 2nd overall in the blue colours, and James Moriarty playing around at the back of the bunch with him. And it's the Western Australian that goes. So Frisley in a dangerous position. Connor Lay is now the next rider to go. So that's a surprise. The three-peat from the individual pursuit gold medal the last 3 years. Maybe big efforts last night.
Well, and in a new national record, 3:10 no less. So he's clearly got form, but that kind of effort does take its toll. The pace is going on now. James Moriarty looks to be in a bit of trouble. No, that's Liam Walsh, the Queenslander. His time has come. Both he and Trezise very quickly went from looking smart, just sitting at the back and tapping up, to pretty tapped out.
He was sitting 4th in the overall standings on 62 points. So he was 12 points off the lead, but Walsh now, the man, has gone. Josh Duffy, the overall leader, look at him sitting in 2nd position, the Tasmanian, looking very strong and quick to move when the bunch was starting to come around the outside. This is going to be an easy elimination. It's John Carter from Western Australia. And Duffy, you can see him on the front there, really taking control, regardless of having won the kilometre time trial this afternoon, as well as doing well in the Omnium rounds.
Well, it will be a very interesting points race. They come around, somebody will be out the next lap.
He's already given up as well. You can see while this is the bunch, off the back of this, there he is from New South Wales.
That's Rowan Hayden-Smith. He's had a great week though, Scott. He rode the Kieran, he rode the points race. He's kind of been in everything. It's not surprising he's a bit tired. Stephen Hall doesn't want to get caught out. He's moving up. But that means that some of the riders we've definitely got our eyes closely on are sitting in a bit of a danger position. James Moriarty, right at the back. Scott, he's been riding really well, but he is more of a sprinter. And I think that he's probably burnt a few many matches so far.
Agnoletto goes in underneath. He is boxed in, but it doesn't matter. Moriarty ran out of legs at the end and couldn't take advantage of the young Victorian being boxed in. The 3 Victorians still in the race. They weren't looking after each other at all then. I saw Frisley move up around the outside of Agnoletto and happily pause to box him in. So I don't think the Victorians are looking out for each other at all. Stephen Hall from Western Australia on the front, but at the back, Oliver Bledden. Now, he's been strong this week. Very good pursuit yesterday. Silver medal in the points race as well. Look over the left, look over the right. There's no one behind. Uh-oh, I'm out.
In that instance, Bledden really did just look around and say, there's nowhere for me to go. So it wasn't the same as what we saw with Moriarty, who was just gone.
No, they are taking Josh Duffy out. Duffy must have infringed. We focused on Oliver Bledden, but Duffy must have infringed or improved on the blue. So technically, Bledden is still in the race, but he's so far behind, he'll get eliminated when he eventually makes his way around at the end of this lap. I'm not sure if these 4 riders completely understand what's happened here.
It's very difficult for the riders to be able to understand the dynamics of what's happening. I mean, we didn't immediately call it, so they would be confused as well. But 3 Victorians left with Stephen Hall. The overall will be a bit thrown around after this. Graham Frisley in the plum position to take the lead overall.
Stephen Hall allows the 3 Victorians to go over the top. So
and he allows them to go, Scott. He's done. Won't even compete for it.
Hall will be the next rider eliminated. So a bit of confusion these last couple of laps. But we know that there are 3 riders left. They are 3 Victorians. Graham Frisley, Henry Dietz and Blake Agnoletto. It's Agnoletto that comes to the front now.
And it looks as though Hall perhaps thought that he was eliminated because he was 4th across the line. in that group. So I'm wondering if there's been some confusion there.
Move from Henry Dietz on the inside. That puts a little bit of a fight there between Blake Agnoletto and Graham Frisley. So Frisley in the third position. He's sitting second in the overall standings. He's now gaining with Josh Duffy, the overall leader, out of the race. Frisley's fast, and he's fast enough to come around the outside. Henry Dietz on the inside. No. They're saying Agnoletto. Agnoletto eliminated because of that shoulder charge into Frisley. So they called that before they even got to the line. You can see the shake of the head. He was not the last across the line. They've relegated him very early.
Fair to say the Victorians aren't working together tonight, Scott,
well, not
from
anymore.
what we've just seen.
Not anymore. They might have been before, but not anymore. Frisley down the back straight. This is Henry Dietz, the youngster, trying to get on top there, but it's not going to happen. So he came in second position overall, Graham Frisley. He'll come out of it in the overall lead with one discipline to come. The points race, that'll be the last event on the program tonight. And Blake Agnoletto, he moves up in the overall standings as well, but he's not happy.
No, not happy, Jan. Not remotely. I wouldn't be happy if I was Graham Frisley, to be honest, because if they just let him take the win, it puts him in a very solid gold medal position. If they do fight him for it, it really compromises that. So they definitely had a clear discussion to say that game on, doesn't matter what skin suit you're wearing, but I think I'll never get used to seeing it. What was that little exchange? Care for some lip reading, Scott?
Well, they all do get along okay until
Normally.
they get on the track.
Yeah.
And we'll see. So let's see if we called it right. I thought it was Henry Dietz, definitely. Henry Dietz was the last rider across the line. So, therefore, it was the shoulder bump between Blake and Graham that caused the relegation to Blake Agnoletto, which is 3/4 of a lap earlier than that. And that was all about just trying to box Frisley in to keep him underneath. The only way to do that is to have some physicality, but it's infringing on the rules and regulations.
Look, I have to put it out there, Scott. I could be friends, absolutely friends with my competitors. On the track, it's game on, but off the track, you're friends. The exception to that rule was anybody who would use their body to try and knock me off my bike. I didn't take that very well. I didn't. I didn't think it was clean racing, and I always got a little bit cranky. You can't imagine that I'm a person who swears, Scott. Of course not. But those were the moments where I considered using swear words.
We might be asking for a lot here. Hopefully I'm not. But we might be able to even scroll back even a little bit further before that sprint and see if we can see that moment where the infringement was. And then we can talk through exactly why it happened. And looking from my generation, nothing in it. But the rules and regulations have moved on. They have changed.
I see what you're kind of saying. You have mentioned a few times you don't mind a little bit of argy-bargy. I have always been dead against it in endurance events, but...
Well, we'll be able to see now because Duffy was taken out the lap before from infringing. I'm not sure what that was. It might have been that he'd gone down on the blue or same. He might have muscled his way into position. So as the Victorians come around this time, they come over the top, and so this is the previous lap. Okay, then that's where Duffy would have been. He'd been called out. So now Stephen Hall will be the next one to go. The three Victorians do pop over the top of Stephen Hall, and that's when the real fighting starts. And there we go. It's Frisley that pops over the top. Stephen Hall out of the saddle, just hasn't got the legs anymore. They're riding such big gears now as well. It's hard to do the stop-start type of sprinting they've been doing. And Agnoletto is in third position. Hall, third of a lap to go before he's eliminated. And they know, right, it's down to us three.
Agnoletto we can recognise from the lighter skin suit, and we're looking to see what he has done.
Remember, Henry Dietz at the back, he was the first to react. So as they come around the final bend, Dietz in third position, dives down underneath. There he goes. Agnoletto pops down. Frisley goes to go onto the wheel. And right there, that was the move that they thought was unfair from Agnoletto onto Frisley.
I think that's a good call. I back the commissaires on that one. That was a good call. I'm not even sure that Agnoletto meant it to be that aggressive, to be honest. And there's certainly a different Like when it comes down to friendship and respect on and off the track, things happen. Sometimes your bike moves at an angle you didn't mean it to. It's all good. When it's purposeful, very different story. I'm not sure that was purposeful. I think it was possibly poorly handled from him. He came down a bit sharper than he meant to. But there's no doubt it impeded the progress. No doubt at all.
And which would have been the intention, for sure. That's the case of the elimination. And, you know, my former Madison partner, Brett Aitken, is one of the absolute best at it. But it was a win to Graham Frisley. He goes into the overall lead with one discipline to come in the men's Omnium. It'll be the points race later on. Back onto the track, though, for the para-tandem sprint semi-finals. And from South Australia, we have Bo Wooten, and he's being piloted by Luke Zachariah. And in the green, white and black skin suit, we have
From
Kevin
Southern
O'Malley.
Highlands.
And Richard Volgebrecht is the pilot. So O'Malley versus Wooten. Wooten, they were the fastest qualifiers this afternoon.
The tandem sprint is always an entertaining race to watch. They do ride very big gears and they do have to sprint very long. Their acceleration takes a little bit longer. But when they're up to speed, Scott, goodness, they move like the clappers.
1 lap to go. You start early in the tandem sprints to get the big gears up and going and the rhythm of the two riders. And with only half a lap to go, Bo Wooten will comfortably come away with the win with Luke Zachariah. Luke's been a regular in the elite sprint competition over the last couple of years at national championships, so a handy rider to have as a pilot. So that's one up in the race for the best of three with Bo Wooten and Luke Zachariah.
Well, Wooten and Zachariah, they qualified in 10.124, so that's pretty handy. Volbrecht and O'Mealy, they qualified in 11.899, so there was a significant differential between them. Not an unexpected result. Now, I believe, and we'll just have to wait to see what happens out here on track, but I understand that the team from Thailand had a bit of a mix-up with their flight, Scott. They booked it for the wrong day. They thought they were leaving tomorrow, but in fact the airline called and let them know they were expected at the airport. So they have been unable to race. So I believe the other team will come out and do a lap, but not actually be able to compete because their competitors are not here. So they'll go straight through to the final.
Yes, they just need to present on the start line to get the victory. So and this is Stephen Kemp in the black skin suit, and we were talking about it earlier, being piloted by Shane Perkins, the former Kieran World Champion, Commonwealth Games gold medalist, and now gym owner.
I'm not sure I've ever seen him in a WA skin suit. I was a bit confused for a second there. Bit of a Victorian defect there, Scott.
So there we go. Presented to the line and victory taken.
Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
a competitor like Perkins, he would not love that. He would be like, let me race. They do get to race for that gold medal.
The smallest of victory salutes, that one.
Well, they rode a 10.571 in the qualifying. So they will come up against most likely Wooten and Zachariah in the final. That'll be a lot closer, 0.4 differential in their qualifying. But we know how savvy Perkins is. He did mention to us that he was, a little bit off his leanest race weight, but he still looks pretty fit and strong to me.
Oh, absolutely. A lot in the gym with he and his wife Christine. And for the qualifying, they put on 120-inch gear, which was a 52.13, I think that was, or 58.13, I can't remember now what he said, but 120, and they were going to go to 130 inches. So for all those cycling people that know track gears, 130 is what they'll be riding. He has 170 cranks on the bike at the moment, but Shane prefers 165s regardless of how big the bike is, or how big the gear is, I should say. He wants to go back to 165s, but 130 on the bike. It's the kind of extraordinary size gears that they all ride. And the individual sprinters now at the world level are riding that and bigger.
Well, Shane Perkins is an extraordinary sized human, so I guess it kind of matches. The endurance riders, I think that would be a bit of a mismatch, trying to put that gear on.
He's got all these bulky things happening all over his body. He should go to the doctor and get those seen to.
They're called muscles.
Oh, is that what they are?
Yeah, that's
I was an endurance athlete. I didn't have many of those.
All right, well, coming up next, Scott, it is a pretty fast-paced night altogether. So we've just had that para-tandem sprint semi-final. We've got the under-19 men's teams pursuit final. There's just a gold medal ride there between South Australia and Victoria. They've got their scratch race on later tonight. We will see a lot of these names again.
Of course, the AusCycling Track National Championships made possible by Brisbane, and it's live in Queensland. It's all happening. The Brisbane Cycling Festival and the Tour de Brisbane coming up, the Grand Fondo in the next couple of weeks. It's the Oceania Track Championships next weekend on this track as well. A lot of these athletes that have been selected into the Australian team will be hanging around in the under-19s and in the elites to compete in the Oceanias. I saw a few of the New Zealand riders yesterday actually cruising around outside. So they're all in town for another big competition. It's very important, the Oceania Championships, for UCI points to make sure that we get to qualify the maximum number of riders into the World Cups and then into the World Championships. Of course, even more important once we get closer to the Paris Olympic Games. Teams coming onto the track now. South Australia versus Victoria. This is the under-19 men's team pursuit, 4,000 metres, 16 laps of the track. And from South Australia, it's Charlie Abel, Jamie Anderson, Michael Bryant and Connor Doyle. And they're in the home straight, the back straight. It's Taryn Cook, the Omnium winner from a couple of nights ago. Angus Gill, Nate Haddon and Dylan Proctor-Parker. And I did go and check after the individual pursuit, Kate. I said I'd go and talk to Dylan's, who finished third. He got the bronze medal in the IP, to see what time he rode, because he caught his opponent and they didn't give an official time. He rode a time that was faster than the gold medal ride.
Oof.
And that was for the bronze. So Dylan Proctor-Parker, in good form. He's in the Victorian team.
Perhaps he should have warmed up a bit harder for his qualifying.
"16 laps of the track underway, and whenever the South Australians come onto the track with all the sort of equipment that they have, we know that they are reasonably well trained. They have a very strong track cycling program in Adelaide, as it is based where the high performance program, the national team, is. And the Victorians, though, have been really strong over the years in the elites and in the under-19s traditionally. So it'll be very close between these two. At the moment, not much between them. And they'll come around to finish 500 metres. We'll get a better indication with the time split. It is Victoria that do lead the way, 0.6 of a second. Faster start for the Victorians.
So the national record for the team's pursuit for the under-19s, well, the Australian record was done by an Australian team. It is just simply the Australian. There's a few records. So the Australian record is an Australian team, doesn't matter where they did it, and that is held by the national team at the Junior World Championships back in 2011 in Moscow. So that's actually a time that's stuck for over a decade. It speaks a lot to them. Oz Championship record is a 4:05, and that was from 2017. And that team included Jensen Plowright, our World Tour pro now. So, oh, how they grow.
Did they have the riders from the Australian record from Moscow?
They do. It's Jack Cummings, Alexander Edmondson, Jackson Law and Alex Morgan.
Well, Victoria going out to a very comfortable lead indeed. So they started slightly quicker and they have not slowed down. And they'll come around and get 9 laps to go. Not quite at the halfway point, but it's a significant lead from them. We'll get a time split as they come down this time, but they can see their opponents now not that far in front of them.
Well, precedent so far has been if they didn't do a qualifying in the morning, they are allowed to continue to ride for a time. South Australia down to 3. Victoria not inching closer, but Scott, metres. They are gaining metres upon metres every lap. every half lap. They're within sight now. They can see them. Will the Victorians go for a time, do you think, Scott, or when they pass them, they'll be content with the gold medal?
Well, hopefully they will indeed let them do it. As we have seen over the last couple of days, they have allowed that in this situation. So I hope they do. I think they will. They would want to, because they want to prove national selection. That's a big thing with the Junior World Championships. The riders now allowed to go back there. They weren't able to do that the last couple of seasons because of the COVID pandemic. So they are fighting for positions in both the Oceania Championships this weekend, plus also positions in the Australian team for the Under-19 World Championships. Victoria is going to win this one. This is clear. They're coming around to get 5 laps to go. They're about to catch the South Australians. Just how fast they are travelling, that's what we're waiting to find out.
Now the Victorians, with 5 laps to go, overtaking the South Australians. Clean overtake etiquette says that the South Australians needed to stay down and let them get a clean overtake. Very clearly going for a time here, Scott, because they're not hesitating at all.
The South Australians have sat up. They'll get the silver medal. You can see there they are. They'll hopefully get out of the way before the Victorians come back around the next time. So inside the final kilometre, 2 laps to go when they come through. It's a good time. They look really smooth too. No one looking as if they're struggling at all. Even turns of pace from all of these riders. Taryn Cook, Angus Gill, Nate Haddon and Dylan Proctor-Parker. And they are inside 2 laps to go.
A lap and a half to go. They've just got to hang on here. They will go through with a fairly fast time. It won't be Australian record breaking, but still definitely putting it out there to get selection.
1 rider now gone out of the Victorian team. So 3 riders, that's all you need to complete the race. And they'll come around, we'll see what the time is. They've just gone to 4:10, 12, 13, and a time of 4:14.429. Pretty handy time indeed for an under-19 state team.
National champions jerseys for those 4 riders. Haddon, Proctor-Parker, Cook, another one for him. And Gill. Cook's had a very successful week, hasn't he?
He was fantastic in the Omnium, winning the overall, but his smarts in the final points race were outstanding. He really did do a tactically brilliant ride, so I was quite impressed. I was chatting with his father actually just before and said it was a really smart ride. So he obviously had the physical ability to get into the lead, but then just made sure that he didn't lose it by the end. So great ride by him there. Another gold medal to Taryn Cook from Victoria, with Angus Gill, Nate Haddon and Dylan Proctor-Parker. Both Gill and Haddon, training partners in Bendigo, the young lads. I did see a message today from the Brunswick Cycling Club. They said they've had 16 riders from Brunswick here at the National Championships. I don't know who has the most from all the clubs, but that was just the one that I did see from Brunswick. And Carnegie Caulfield always have a lot of quality riders. Brunswick Cycling Club in Victoria also.
Well, there's a lot from Bendigo based on how many times this week you've said they're from Bendigo.
Oh, they're dominating. Small town.
Yeah, look, I don't think we have any riders here from Parramatta Cycling Club, but look, we've had some good riders in our day. The McGees are a good example. Steve McLeod.
Yes.
It's a bit of a theme there with the Mcs.
Yep. Well, Steve and I went to the Junior World Championships last century. Well into last century.
It truly was. I thought that was an exaggeration, but no, alas, it was not.
And I called Steve, just as you mentioned it. Congratulations to the Victorians. A great ride by them. 4:14.429 to come away with the gold medal ahead of South Australia. It was Abel, Anderson, Bryant and Doyle picking up the silver. But I did call Steve just before the funeral of Dean Woods, just to check if he was going to make his way across. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to get there, nor was I, because of work commitments. But Dean himself was a teammate of both Steve and mine at the 88 Olympic Games. So a really sad moment for our generation, and of course the generation just before us, where Dean was a member of that gold medal winning team pursuit in Los Angeles, along with Michael Grender, Kevin Nichols and Michael Turter. And for Wayne McCarney and Brett Dutton, and I know David Solari is another one, that these riders were so close to Dean, and everyone very sad about his passing.
Well, and may he rest in peace.
Back to the tandems, and this will be the second ride for Bo Wooten up against Kevin O'Malley. And the South Australian skin suits had a very comfortable win in the first one. So they win this and they'll go into the race against Stephen Kemp and Shane Perkins for the final.
Well, Wooten piloted by Zachariah, O'Malley piloted by Volbrecht. There's 1.5 seconds difference in qualifying, 10-1 versus 11-6. We saw that play out quite cleanly in the first round of this semi-final. And out of the spirit of fairness, I would like to see Wooten and Zachariah, if they take 2 from 2, be able to do it in a convincing enough way that they don't have to use too much energy. And I say that because, of course, the other pairing of piloted by Perkins and Stephen Kemp, they didn't have to do this. It's a bit of an unfair advantage, I have to say. I'm surprised they didn't make Perkins and Kemp at least ride the distance. But rules are rules, I suppose. It seems like an odd one, though.
The other challenge for Rebecca DiCello is just holding up the extra weight of 2 riders on a tandem. See, they were wobbling around a little bit there, struggling. It's not just Beck on her own, of course.
No,
but
they have 2 of them, yes. Well, Beck is very slight.
There was some teeth clenching as they were trying to make sure that they didn't fall over. We saw that recently, actually, and even at the World Championships last year. With experienced coaches making some mistakes, not in tandems, just with individual sprinters.
Well, Rebecca McConnell, Rebecca DiCello, pardon me, thinking about the mountain bikers, won a stage of the Giro d'Italia in the women in an Italian team in a team's time trial. So a very accomplished rider herself.
Working out coaching with the New South Wales team, but she's Victorian.
Not anymore. What T-shirt is she wearing, Scott?
There's a big V underneath, I'm sure. The Victorians, we're into it. And for the South Australians, if they get the win, they'll go through to the race for gold. We know who they'll be up against because they've had a comfortable ride. Shane Perkins and Stephen Kemp didn't even ride at all. Presented themselves with the unfortunate incident with the Thailand team not being able to come to the start line. And diving down underneath, looking much more comfortable on the bike, I must say, is Bo Wooten and Luke Zachariah. So Zachariah steering them down underneath, 1 lap to go. And it'll be, as it was in the first ride, there's no coming back from a gap like that. So they are way out in front. Bo Wooten being piloted by Luke Zachariah. They'll get the 2 straight wins and they'll go into the final to race against Stephen Kemp. And Kempy will be piloted by Shane Perkins. So it'll be really good to see how Shane Perkins goes as a pilot, considering he's only been doing this for a couple of months.
Well, what he lacks in piloting experience, he makes up for with those quadriceps. So I think he'll go all right. That's just my general feeling. But it does certainly take a little bit of getting used to. Wooten and Zachariah are fast. They haven't gotten to this point in the competition without being so. And they rode really efficiently there too. They used the bank to gain some speed and didn't have to ever both get out of their saddle and accelerate full gas like the other team, O'Malley and Volbrecht. So they knew that they could win it, but they also had to make sure they did it efficiently. And this is the moment, Scott, where they just used the banking to get the element of surprise, and they duck underneath, and Volbrecht saw it, but a little bit too late, because it wasn't until they were almost entirely past before Volbrecht sounded the alarm that they needed to get their move on. They just weren't able to react with enough acceleration there. It's such a solid ride from the South Australian pair.
We will have the first of our presentations not too far away, I think. And the Omniums will continue. A few more races from the para cyclists, the under-19 women's Omnium. They'll be coming out for their points race. The elite women have their points race tonight, so that'll be a good one. Kate, I'm sure you're very interested to see how that goes. The under-19 men have their scratch race, and that will more than likely include if not all, but most of the two teams from South Australia and Victoria that we saw come out in their under-19 team pursuit, having to double up. And that did happen at World Championships level not that long ago when the Australians won the World Team Pursuit title, and then an hour later, Sam Welsford got on the track reluctantly to do the scratch race because he said he was so tired from the team pursuit. He was encouraged to just give it a go and won the scratch race. Another gold medal for him. So great performance from Sam Welsford back then. It's only a couple of years ago.
Well, sometimes when you go into a race with not a lot of expectation because you've already expended a lot of energy and it's a bit like, nothing to lose, then often you race a lot more relaxed and make better decisions because you don't have that pressure and anticipation on you. So good example from Sam Welsford.
Slight pause in the program. We won't be too far away from getting the action happening though, but let's have a look around the Tour de Brisbane and the Brisbane Cycling Festival.
Brisbane is rolling out the red carpet for cyclists and their families with the Australian Unity Tour de Brisbane on Sunday, April 10 as part of the Brisbane Cycling Festival. Join me, Osher Ginsberg, and ride exclusive closed roads on the Story Bridge, Mount Cootha and more. Plus, a free community ride and fun run. We're on a mission to raise vital funds for the common good, powering life-changing medical research at the Prince Charles Hospital. Register now at tourdebrisbane.org.
The 2022 Brisbane Cycling Festival presented by King Street kicks off March 24 to April 14. Experience Australia's only fully closed road inner city bike ride, the Australian Unity Tour de Brisbane. Supported by free family entertainment at the Brisbane Showgrounds, including the Active Lifestyle Expo. Across the festival, enjoy world-class racing at AusCycling's Track Nationals and the Oceania Championships. The festival with something for every age and ability. Experience Brisbane on a bike. BrisbaneCyclingFestival.com.
We are not here on this planet to close our eyes to the world.
We are here to go out and experience its many wonders.
Because through our experiences,
We become bigger than ourselves.
travel has the power to shape our world.
And make us whole again.
With 30 hotel brands and endless experiences, where can we take you?
When you don't need to worry, there'll be days like this. When no one's in a hurry, there will be days like this. When all the parts of the puzzle start to look like they fit. My mama told me there'll be days like this. Mama told me there'll be days like this.
We can see the presentation podium has now been erected. It's for the under-19 men's team pursuit. And there's a couple of the South Australians making their way over. Two teams represented. A little bit light in depth this year, and I don't know exactly why. Normally they have many more in the under-19 team pursuit, but challenging situations around schooling and COVID, and there's so many factors that are playing in that, but two strong teams in South Australia and Victoria. And we will have a chat, Kate, in a moment with Brett Aitken, who is the interim high-performance coach for the track endurance squad. So he would have been keenly looking at these young riders because maybe they'll be part of that team pursuit program going forward.
Well, and it has been the case a few times over the last years that they've actually combined the elite men and the under-19 men in some of the instances. So it's good to see that there are enough in the elite that did get separated. But they do have their scratch race coming up tonight. So a lot of the team's pursuiters that we've just seen in action will be there. But the other person out on track, Scott, will be Ben Anderson. And he rode a 103.8 to win the kilo this afternoon. So he's clearly got good legs. If they don't hurry up in that scratch race, he might just sit on and get a good ride to the end.
Looking back at the start of the under-19 men's team pursuit, that's the presentation that we are just waiting for them to get underway. Taryn Cook, Angus Gill, Nate Haddon and Dylan Proctor-Parker. And from South Australia it was Charlie Abel, Jamie Anderson, Michael Bryant and Connor Doyle. and they did have a good start out in front right away, and they weren't even challenged by South Australia, so it was a really strong performance from them. The riders themselves now have put themselves in formation, and they are walking to the podium now. There's the South Australians, Abel, Anderson, Bryant and Doyle, and it's Angus Gill with Taryn Cook, Nate Haddon and Dylan Proctor-Parker.
It looks from this angle, Scott, like all 8 of them are the exact same height.
They've come out of the team pursuit mould.
That is unusual, yes.
So the old East German team, they were typically a tall team, but it's almost like they were just put out of one mould.
Well, I do recall when Ashley Hutchinson was racing with Mark Jamieson, and I don't think you could have had 2 more disparate in height athletes. So this generation, they got the memo. Talent ID.
I was only chatting with Hutchie a couple of days ago, actually. So looking to catch up maybe he's based in Melbourne now, so I'm looking to catch up with the former world champ at some point.
Well, he is a Queenslander. He won the national scratch race on the track. He was a very handy, very fast rider, also a good teams pursuiter. A lot of these teams pursuiters will feature quite prominently in the scratch race tonight. They'll get their medals and then get a bit of a chance to recover and get those legs fresh again for that scratch race.
And while the young Victorians are putting their national champions jerseys on, opportunity to have a chat with Brett Aiken, so my old teammate from the Sydney Olympic Games, but coach at the South Australian Institute of Sport, and just recently with the changeover of Tim Decker leaving the high performance program as the track endurance coach, he's now working for China, and Brett Aiken has come in as the interim coach to take over for this next little phase. And Brett, we're looking at the under-19 men Victorians there, and Kate was saying how all 8 riders look as if they come out of the same mould, team pursuit mould. In your position now as the interim coach of the high performance program for the track endurance, how much are you looking at the under-19s now, or is you're still with the big guys, or you're still looking at the 19s?
Yes, good question, Scott. I guess you never stop looking underneath, and it's really important to look to the long-term future of the sport and especially in teams pursuing. To always be looking underneath, and I think every coach does that to a certain extent. You know, you want to see what the next talent coming through is, and who's available, and how far away they might be from reaching the top level of the sport.
And this interim position that you hold at the moment, with Tim Decker moving out of the program, I think he was offered a short-term contract but wanted something longer, and there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that they weren't disgruntled or unhappy with him, but it just didn't work with what he wanted to do. So he's now working for China. You've stepped in to take that position for now. How much of a challenge has that been? Because this certainly wasn't planned, was it?
Definitely wasn't planned. It's a huge challenge, and it is a short period, obviously, to be working with the guys, in the interim. But look, I'm really honoured, to be in this position. It's when you think about it, in 40 years, I'm really only the 4th person in this position. So like it's amazing to think of it in that way. But so I am deeply honoured by the position, and they've been amazing coaches before me, with Charlie and Ian McKenzie and Tim Decker. So I'm really honoured. And what's the likelihood that you get to keep with this? Because that's the challenge now for you. I'm sure you'd like to stay in this position. Is there a real genuine chance that could happen? Oh, look, and the thing is, we're in a year, post-Olympics, which is like every post-Olympics, riders and athletes, they try and determine where they want to go in the future. And so we've got a lot of guys pretty much, from the Olympic team last year that are really chasing, pro contracts and are, have got those pro contracts, but really need to impress their professional teams overseas. So it's a great chance, for some of the new blood to come through, and I'm working with some new guys that have never really competed at that international level or that high international level. So it is a challenge in that way, but as I say, a great opportunity.
Just stay with us for a moment, Brett, because we do have the young under-19 Victorians that just won the team pursuit. So let's have a chat to the young lads now.
Taryn, how is that? How hard is it racing against, I guess, straight into a gold medal final?
Yeah, look, it was pretty hard. Obviously, we didn't have to do the qualifier, so that made it quite a bit easier, not having to back up with 2 rides. But yeah, we had Dylan on the front, towing us around a fair bit, so yeah, that made it a whole lot easier for us boys.
Is this the first time you've competed all together?
Yeah, we only had a few weeks of training because COVID and things like that. But yeah, considering the amount of training done, we're really, really happy with the time we rode.
And I did see you out here a few days ago during the sessions, so were you perfecting the transitions then?
Yeah, we just came down to the track to get a few turns in, try and find the rhythm, because every track's a little bit different, especially at Brisbane. The bends are a little bit longer than a disc, so yeah, we're just trying to get a feel for the track.
Thanks, boys.
Oh, no.
Well, we do still have Brett Aiken with us up here. We'll continue that chat in a moment, but we'll just get into the next event that's on the track after the presentations have been completed. And we can see the tandems. It's the para-tandem sprint for the women. And Candice Kennedy from South Australia being piloted by Kelly Fetz absolutely have blown away Caroline Baird and Siobhan Aerosmith. So they've come away to get the win. And it was a really comfortable one from them. Now, being a South Australian, Brett, when the South Australians typically come out on the track, I talk about how there's such a strong track cycling program in South Australia. But what we're noticing this time is Queensland have stepped up. Seem to be a lot more Queenslanders. They had a men's team pursuit team, which they haven't really had a strong one for quite a while. There's some real depth. And in the under-19s, both women's and men's sprints were won by Queenslanders. So do you feel that it's the track, the facility, build it and they will come kind of scenario?
Oh, certainly. Since the track's been here, it's been phenomenal for Queensland in terms of track cycling, and I think it is building. They've also just taken on a sprint coach, which is already paying dividends. You know, when we see the likes of Byron Davies coming through and Ryan Elliott, have sort of been doing well in their events. Also, there's the Brisbane Olympics coming up in 2032, so there's going to be massive momentum towards that. And I think the announcement of that last year was probably one of the biggest things that's ever going to happen for cycling here in this state, and we're going to see massive investment in the sport and towards as it builds towards 2032.
Birmingham. So it's not too far away now. We're in the selection process. It's all sort of happening now. How far are we down that path? And obviously there's certain athletes that have been earmarked. And what's the process now for you coming in, not blind, but late, and it's a big year because it's the Birmingham Commonwealth Games.
Yeah, it is a big year, but we have to keep things in perspective and start, as I say, we're in a year post-Olympics. So it's unusual that it's post-Olympic year, but we're also in a Commonwealth Games year, so... I guess we have to really keep the eye on the big prize and as I say, develop and build towards that. So I'm not playing down the Commonwealth Games, but it is a major event for us and is important. But it really is about keeping it in perspective. In terms of selection, we're seeing a lot of guys put their hands up this week. I'm really pleased to see a full field in the elite men. In all the bunch racing, I think it's been some of the best bunch racing I've seen in over 10 years. So I'm really happy about that. And we've still got the Oceanas and there's Nations Cups coming up in the future as well.
Yeah. So there's no stopping, is there? It keeps going. What about the Tokyo Olympians, both the men and the women? So many of them have gone into the pro road scene. Is there still a connection with them to keep them back onto the track, in particular towards Paris in a couple of years?
Yeah, definitely, and certainly on the endurance side, Glenn O'Shea is keeping in contact with all the girls overseas, and I'm already making those steps to do the same with all the guys, and I'm having regular contact with all the guys, seeing where they're at, seeing what races they're doing and what they're available for, and what they can do on the track. Which is hard. When you come in as an interim coach and really to I'm really in the deep end at the moment, and trying to catch my feet as quickly as possible. But it's really. I'm really enjoying it. I'm loving what I'm doing, and as much as I love working in the state environment as well. But it's a whole new level now.
It is, and we can see the next race has come onto the track. It's the Elite Women's Points Race. It's a straight-out final. We have 13 riders, and you're right about this, the Elite Men having a full field in the bunch races, but all of the bunch races, even the under 19 women's Madison, which only had 4 teams, but it still had all the different elements of a great Madison. There was a crash, which is often one. There was a lap taken. It was a real fight between the teams in the first few sprints, and then there was a change of podium in the final sprint. So it still had action, but when we get into the other bigger bunch races, absolutely been sensational, that's for sure. And Josh Duffy, who's part of that Birmingham program, he's really shown some exceptional form, but then had a little bit of a hiccup in the elimination. It was DQ'd from one of the positions in the elimination. I don't know if you watched the men's elimination, but did you see the situation with Blake Anuletto and Graham Frisley?
Actually, I saw there was a little bit of a move between them, but I didn't pick it up enough to know that there was going to be a relegation from it, because what I did notice was, it looked like Blake was across the line first and then got relegated, and obviously that's what it was for. Yeah, he did squeeze down, and I actually made reference to you that that you were one of the and you know where I'm going with this. We used to get away with that stuff. Absolutely, go through the gaps that weren't there. But that was one of the beauties of the elimination, is you could actually box riders in. And sometimes, if you box a rider in and they want to get out, then they have to get physical. And you might have to get a little bit physical to hold them in. So it's a challenging situation that we saw, and Blake wasn't happy about it, that is for sure. But it has been great bunch racing, very competitive. Connor Lay with the national record in the individual pursuit, 4,000 metres as well. He's another one of your guys that are earmarked for Birmingham as well. You'd be happy with that? Yeah, really happy with that. And that was one of his main goals coming into it, was to break the national record, and it's a long-standing national record, of course, with Jack Bobridge back in 2011. But look, I think he's capable of much bigger things. He's really developing in a really good way, and hopefully we'll see him go even faster hopefully as long as he gets selected for Com Games. Oh, look, no doubt. And having an individual pursuit at the Commonwealth Games, they don't get much of an opportunity, these riders. World Championships, yes, but unfortunately not at the Olympic Games anymore. So that's something for Connor to really focus on. Pretty cruisy to start with here in the women's points race. They're coming around to get 54 laps to go. And the field consists of Emily Watts from New South Wales, Hayley Jones, Queenslander, Madison Taylor also from Queensland, alongside Alex Martin Wallace. She'll be one of the favourites, Martin Wallace, youngster, and former superstar of the under-19s. Sophie Edwards from South Australia. Also Ali Anderson, Nicola McDonald and Chloe Moran. Now they got first, second and third in the Omnium a couple of days ago. So the South Australians, as Brett Aiken would be very happy about, would be very strong. And this time they have Maeve Plouffe on the start list, but not on the race by the looks of it. So she hasn't taken to the start line. I think it's the under-19 race. Yeah. I'm looking at the wrong start list, am I? Well, there you go. We'll go through that in a moment. It is too, of course, sorry. I'll flip through another page. Sophie Meares it is that leads through to the first sprints, and we saw how strong she has been over the last couple of days. Really strong indeed. And Lucy Stewart looking to come over the outside of her, so the two Victorians, and Stewart will just get there. It is the under-19 women's points race. Picked up the wrong sheet, unfortunately, but it's Sophie Meares trying to hold on. So this is the final discipline of the under-19's Omnium. And Meg Marker, after an outstanding performance, did come in as the overall leader, tied on points with Sophie Meares. Those two are on 108 points. Then Izzy Carnes from Queensland on 100. Lucy Stewart on 98, so 10 points off the lead, but she did pick up the 5 points there. So she's getting a little bit closer to the other riders. But Sophie Meares in the points as well, as was Carnes. Meg Marker
is the rider that didn't score any points, the South Australian. So that's surprising. She's quite fast, Brett.
She is. She's actually done really well in the Kiirans the last 2 years. I think last year she was second in the Kiiran. This year she was also second in the Kiiran. So it just proves her all-round ability.
A little bit of a move after that, and the peloton has split into two. Marker, as we were talking about, is in the second group, as is Sophie Ma and Lucy Stewart. So the big favourites, just with a little bit of work to do to make sure they get themselves back in contention. The pace has gone off the front. Belinda Bailey goes through for Victoria. So a lot of Victorians in this race, but what we have noticed from them is they are not looking out for each other so much. They are really racing each other hard, which has made it competitive.
Yeah, look, which is good to see. Like, I mean, obviously sometimes you can get races a little bit stacked by one state in these sorts of races, and especially your junior girls, where like it's sometimes difficult to get the numbers in there. But it's good to see that they are racing, in that sense. Like if it was all one-sided, work for one rider type of style of racing, we'd probably see quite negative racing. But it just makes it a little bit more exciting.
Sophie Ma with second place in that sprint, 111 points now. Meg Marker on 8, no points at all in that sprint. Lucy Stewart was the mover. She won the sprint, moved up to 103, keeping herself in contention for the top medals. Sits in the bronze for now. Then it's Izzy Carnes on 102 in fourth place. And Sophie Sutton still keeping herself there. She won the elimination we saw earlier tonight, so a strong ride from Sophie Sutton, and she sits in fifth place. Then a bit of a gap back to Kira Will on 92 points in sixth. Summer Nordmeyer, who we saw crash in the Madison. She's back and healthy and going. And also going is a Victorian, right around the outside. So 42 laps to go. She's gone a little bit early for the sprint itself. But Sophie Sutton, off the back of that elimination win, really animated. Perhaps not quite as much as Sophie Ma, though, because she's gone right around the outside. She was second in the first sprint, but she wants this one. 41 laps to go, and it's Ma that has gone right around the front. Meg Marker chasing her down, and Lucy Stewart is on Marker's wheel. Ma from here, you surely can't be beaten, so she'll pick up the 5 points. So the overall race leader on 111, she'll go to 116 now, and Meg Marker holds on for the 3 points with Lucy Stewart in there as well. So it's the same riders we're seeing. Izzy Carnes just out of the way in maybe fourth position for Queensland. Good move from Sophie Ma, using a lot of energy though, Brett.
Yeah, but she's got the power and the capability to do it. You can see she already looks like she's recovered. And she's already proven herself so strong on the road, and this is perfectly suited to this type of event.
And a bit of confidence building there as well. She's already in the lead. She's extended that overall lead now from that sprint. 38 laps to go.
Over a 5-point lead there as well, which gives her a handy sort of buffer.
You can start to think, not that she might, but of just following the right wheels a little bit more now as well. It's not so desperate to go for those points anymore. Izzy Carnes is a good, strong rider from Queensland, and she's now in fourth place on 102. Only 1 point behind Lucy Stewart, but she might want to go on the attack to maybe try and get away. Well, Brett, I'd just like to wish you all the very best. Of course, we have a great connection from winning Olympic gold together, so I'm always happy and proud to see you doing good things, and good luck with the process of being the interim coach. Let's hope that continues to be the coach as you get further down the program.
Yeah, look, I'm just privileged, as I say, to be in this position and having a crack, and just like the guys that are coming underneath and trying to break into the top echelon of the sport. We're all just doing our best and see how it goes.
Oh, good luck to you, mate. Thanks for coming up for a chat. Brett Aitken there, ladies and gentlemen. Olympic gold medalist from 2000, multiple times a world champion as well. Broke the world record in 1993. It was a famous victory when they won the Worlds in the team pursuit. He's got a bunch of medals and now coaching the high performance program for the Australian cycling team.
I would have let him stay longer, Scott, except it's a women's points race. So I came in here and I put my sharp elbows out.
Well, just so you know, because you may not have been listening, but I looked down at the start sheet, saw women's points race and started going through the names, and then Brett pointed out it's the under-19s.
In the Omnium, yes,
and
indeed.
I was talking about the wrong riders.
Indeed.
But yeah.
Well, I want to just give a bit of a shout-out to my two beautiful daughters, Eleanor and Margaret. Ellie and Maggie are sitting in front of the television watching the coverage, and I believe that my mum is explaining to them that I was pretty good at this event. So that's kind of cool. I love that. So hello, girls. I love you very much.
Ellie and Maggie, g'day. Give us a wave through the screen. We're waving back at you, and you're hopefully getting inspired by seeing riders that are not that much older than you, the under-19 women, and Sophie Markate, really strong, 116 points. They come around for the next sprint and straight over the top again. Now, she did this a little bit earlier in the previous sprint, but gee, she's got some strength. This is 2 sprints in a row where Sophie Ma doesn't want to just win them. She wants to completely smash the field in these sprints. Another 5 points go to Sophie with 30 laps to go. Really close for second. Meg Marker might have just got there over the top of Kira Will. We'll just wait for confirmation, but out in front, well, that was clear. 5 points to Sophie Ma.
It was, and it's really changed direction, hasn't it? Because I think that Sophie, we know that she's, arguably the strongest out there based on her performances this week, but more than that, it's like she's kind of sick of sprinting with people and the tactics around it. She knows she's strong. She's got to take a bit of a deep breath and suck it up to attack so much every time. And it does hurt, and we can see that now. We're watching the replay at the moment. Just look at the distance. But she's smart. She looks over her shoulder. She's not doing it needlessly, but comfortably enough that she's in her own rhythm and able to not have to worry about wheels around her or battling over the top of anyone. It comes as a bit of a price, though. And similar to what we saw in the under-19 men, the elite men in their Omnium, we've got 3 Victorians who quite strongly appear to not be working together.
Which is great.
So,
we were talking about that before. That and at the under-19 level, they don't do it like we see in the elites so much. And technically, it still is frowned upon. So if you use the word collusion, you're not allowed to do that at the championships. But we see from time to time teams working
we
with
see
each
in
other.
98% of situations, state teams do work together.
The 19s is the exception. Not so much the 19 men, but the 19 women definitely do sort of treat it more as an individual race, which is great. In a small field like this, as Brett was saying, a dominant team like Victoria with 5 riders on the track in a small field would really wreck the race. And it's not the way that Sophie Ma's winning it. She's winning it because she's been the fastest, the most strong in these sprints as well. 24 laps to go now, and Sophie Ma leads the way on 121 points. Meg Marker from South Australia on 114. And then it's Lucy Stewart on 106 and Izzy Carnes from Queensland on 102. Sophie Sutton sits in 5th place and she's on 99 points. So Sophie Ma, 7-point advantage now with 3 sprints still to come.
I mean, I'll tell you an element that I'm finding a bit frustrating about the Omnium racing, Scott. And I'm happy to put myself out there as a real traditionalist. I'm still not hot on the Omnium. I'm willing to say it. I feel like it's a carnival race. I'm not sure about it at the Olympics, but no points race. Pure at the Olympics or individual pursuit. We can pop that aside. My concern with the current format is that in nearly every race that we are seeing play out, the final sprint in the points race is deciding it. That seems a bit off to me.
Brings it right down to the very end. That's
you
to a
could
conclusion.
look at it like
That's
that.
Great.
You could look at it like that. And you do.
It's changing the medals. They come around to get 20 laps to go. So they're in the sprint this time. And Lucy Stewart hasn't been as prominent as we would have thought she may have been. She'll get second because Izzy Carnes comes over the top. Good ride by Izzy. And I did mention that while Izzy's the only Queenslander out there, she's a little bit behind. She sits in 4th place and 4 points behind Lucy Stewart, but she did pick up the 5 points that time. Stewart with the 3 points. So they will remain in 3rd and 4th place, but for Carnes to maybe get up into the medals, she needs to be aggressive now and put Lucy Stewart in particular under a bit of pressure.
It's and my comment about the last sprint in the points race, I just feel, Scott, like we'd get the same result if they just did a points race. And maybe I'm a bit pessimistic, and there's probably some people typing furiously in the comments on Facebook or on YouTube. Shout out to you people, I don't mind. Go your hardest, I like a good disagreement. But, you know, I guess a lot of these riders are very heavily fatigued. They're on day 5 of racing, and they have been racing so hard. It's entertaining, though, for us, for our benefit.
It'll be interesting in the elite men because with the longer points race that they'll do, 25 kilometres, there's more opportunity to take laps and therefore get 20 points added to your total once you do. And if you're sitting down in 5th or 6th place coming in and start taking laps, then you're up into the medals. And that's where things really do start to change, which would be the difference from coming into a points race where everybody's starting on equal footing. Because there's certainly some tactics involved in that situation, is there? Because those riders that sit down maybe in 6th place aren't marked. Coming into the final Omnium points race, the top 3-4 riders really do mark each other out, and it creates opportunity for the riders down in 6th, 7th and 8th place to attack, not get chased down, and then maximise their results by taking laps.
Yes, very solid point. So they don't have too far to go. They'll come around and get 15 laps to go. Somehow they've managed to make their way back to being a bunch despite a lot of gaps opening up. But we are down to 9 riders, so we've lost a rider out there. We had 10 in the elimination. There have been some very big gaps and some very solid attacks, but everybody's pretty tired and they're getting about 30 to 50 metres up the track and just not able to keep it going when the bunch is accelerating. It plays very much into Sophie Meares' hands.
Meg Marker in the other days really has shown some great speed, but now we're deep into this competition, the final night of the Track National Championships. Sophie Meares sprinting is really standing up, isn't it? She's just showing so much strength. They'll come around and get 12 laps to go, so they'll be positioning themselves for the next sprint. And it's Carnes with Lucy Stewart behind her on the outside in the red colours. That's Meg Marker. And then on her wheel is the overall leader in Sophie Meares. So the top 4 are in the top 4 positions here coming around to the penultimate sprint. They'll get the bell this time, and it's Izzy Khan that's going to lead them through the bell. Meg Marker, though, she doesn't want to be hung up on the outside for too long. She needs to fight over the top if she's going to have a chance for the 5. And on the inside, Stewart boxed in, can't get out. What's Sophie Meares capable of doing? Can she go 3 wide around the outside? She's been super strong in these sprints, but this time, Carnes has been strong. She holds on from the bottom of the track to get the 5.
Well, most importantly from that is that Sophie Meares got points ahead of Meg Marker, which means coming into this final sprint, she cannot be beaten. That is what Sophie Meares needed to do, and she suffered there. She has looked so smooth, but she suffered quite significantly in that sprint. The first time we've really seen a grimace on her face. Good to see she's human. Shout out to her mum Doris as well, who's a sensational athlete herself, and that's, I've no doubt, where Sophie gets her tenacity from. And a very proud mum after the incredible performance from Sophie this week. But she's still... It's like she takes on the responsibility of the gold medal and she respects it, Scott. And I say that because she could just sit on the back at this point. All she needs to do is cross the line safely. But she doesn't. She just did a very big turn at the front and she wants to respect the race. And you can bet your bottom dollar she'll be sprinting in this last sprint.
Wants to finish on a high. And Summer Nordmeyer with an attack didn't come to fruition. A little bit off the front. The peloton did speed up and chase her down. And that was the end of it. So she goes into 3rd last position. Kira Will from New South Wales going right to the back now. And 6 laps to go. One more sprint. Point standing, Sophie Meares on 124 with a 10-point lead over Meg Marker. Lucy Stewart is 2 points away from the silver medal, and Izzy Carnes is on the same points as Lucy Stewart. So coming into this final sprint, Meares looks comfortable out in the front on 124, but Marker has 2 points over both Stewart and Carnes. This is going to be really tight for the final medals, and the silver medal's still very much up for grabs.
We'll come around with 1 kilometre left to race. Incredible how tight it is actually between second and fourth, and really the order which we will see them finish in the sprint is likely the order they will end up finishing on the podium behind Sophie Meares. Sophie Meares sitting comfortably in fourth wheel. The Victorians, are they now working together here perhaps to get Lucy Stewart up there?
3 laps to go, and Hribar on the front. This is about a lap and a half that she's been on the front now and picking the pace up. So there's definitely some intent from Hribar to set things up for Lucy Stewart to go for the silver.
Why doesn't Sophie Meares pop up and help Lucy Stewart here? Because she's already won and can't be beaten?
Here she comes. Sophie Meares coming up round the outside. It's 2 laps to go. Meares has gone early. No one else followed other than Lucy Stewart. So it might be not intentional for a lead out for Stewart, but that's what it can be here. Stewart in the slipstream now. 1 lap to go of the riders chasing the silver and bronze medals. Whoever finishes in front of the other riders will come away with the top medal. Stewart up round the outside. Meares, the overall leader on the inside, trying to fight back, but if Stewart can get to the line first, she'll get the silver medal. Lucy Stewart's trying to hold on. She does get there. It's silver to Lucy Stewart. Great final sprint from her. Sophie Meares will win the gold medal, and Izzy Carnes come over the top as well. She may have put herself up into the bronze. Wait for final confirmations. I was really focusing on where Lucy Stewart was. That was a great final sprint.
That was a sensational final sprint. And this is where it got really hectic in those final metres, where look at the speed of Meares here, where she is coming over the top, and that is with a lap to go.
Oh, Carnes over the top. I called... well, we'll wait for confirmation. Meares definitely is the winner, that's for sure.
That was with 20 laps to go. So that was the second last sprint that we were watching there.
Oh, that confused the heck out of me then. Hang on. I'm sure she got to the line first.
Indeed,
Stewart.
She did.
Yeah, just so you know at home, I did get the apology from the producer then, because you absolutely blew my mind then. I'm thinking, hang on, how silly am I? Called that completely wrong.
At least you have your glasses on. It's okay. Sophie Meares, sensational ride tonight, sensational week from her. We spoke to her after she won her first gold medal, and she was thrilled. You know, she was really thrilled that all the hard work has been paying off, and that they would likely get to travel to the Junior Worlds this year, which is exciting for the youngsters, and really tough a couple of years where they won't be able to do that. But she's in a pickle now already, Scott, as a junior, track or road?
Both. Keep doing both. At Junior World Championships level, it's a bit of a challenge. They do try and work about whether you should or you shouldn't, etc., etc. Some riders are allowed to, some are not.
Well, if they're going to make an exception, I think Sophie Meares kind of ticks the boxes for that. She's the under-19 women's road race champion, and she has dominated the elite ranks here.
The other factor, and Sarah Gigante is the exception to this, is the schooling. Because it does take a lot of time to do the track and the Road World Championship. So very important to make sure that that does not affect their schooling. And I say Sarah Gigante is the exception to that because she still had a perfect score at school regardless of doing both track and road at the World Under-19 Championships. Well, the big news from the final sprint in the Under-19 Women's Omnium is Lucy Stewart was relegated to 4th place.
I'm not hot on that decision. Well, we need to see a replay of that at some point when we can.
So we know the gold medalist was Sophie Meares, 128 points. But Izzy Carnes from Queensland now with the relegation of Lucy Stewart pops up to the silver medal, 2 points ahead of Meg Marker. And Lucy Stewart, very disappointing for her. She finishes now in 4th place.
Yeah,
I didn't see what it was. I didn't see exactly what had happened there, but it is what it is.
I didn't notice anything too out of sorts, but the commissars have been making some good calls.
On to the para-tandem sprint final, the race for gold. And we haven't seen them perform in the evening program yet, but Stephen Kemp is in the black skin suit, being piloted by Shane Perkins on the front. They were the second fastest qualifiers behind Bo Wooten, being piloted by Luke Zachariah. And you can see the South Australians. They're coming around now to get one lap to go, and the South Australians with a big job to do. So Kemp and Perkins come to the line in first position. And the gap still fairly big as well. There's going to be a big ask for the South Australians to come around the outside from there. And this could be the first win we see for Stephen Kemp, being piloted with Shane Perkins, the second fastest qualifiers. But it doesn't matter when you get onto the track and race because they got the win.
And I think that's exactly the advantage that we suspected that they may have. It's not about the qualifying when you're out there, the racecraft that Perkins brings, the awareness. He was always the kind of rider when he was sprinting on his own that he never even really looked around that much. He sensed the rider. He sensed where they were at, especially in Kieran's. He was quite a spectacular Kieran rider. And this really suits that intuition that he has, that race intuition. His timing is exceptional. And I think that they're a really great pair. You know, this could be the start of quite a spectacular journey for these two.
So a great ride there. But let's have a look at the final sprints. And second position is Lucy Stewart. That's Izzy Carnes. And Nordmeyer is the first of the South Australians. And I'm not sure this is the last sprint, actually.
I think, if anything, it was the moment where Ma came past. And she stepped out to get on the wheel. That was the only moment that I thought, ooh, I didn't think it was an infringement, but I do recall it was about where they are right now, actually, about the 40-metre mark. Ma accelerated around. She was in second wheel at the time, and she stepped out to jump on that wheel and accelerate around. Mm-hmm. We'll have to see if we can find a replay on that. But that's a bit of a bummer. For the juniors, I think it's tough.
So this is it now. Sophie Ma, and because she's gone well and truly early. That's at the bell. Second position is Stewart. Carnes in third position and Marker in fourth. Steps out cleanly at this point, and then trying to come around the outside with Ma really fighting on the inside. And stepped out there. So almost up to the blue line. So I think it was just that flick halfway down the finishing straight that caused the relegation.
Oh,
it's a tight one. She moved.
Yeah,
I'm not sure
about that one. I do love our commissaires, and they do have an exceptionally tough job. I'm not sure about that one.
And I know they love us. They love us. They do.
Yes.
Sometimes.
Oh.
Yeah, look,
except when
I
say that.
Tough call. But you know, and look, sometimes when you're looking under the shoulder and seeing, you can sense a rider coming, you drift that way without really intending to do so. I don't think it would have changed the difference. I think she still would have got there before them anyway. But
yeah, I mean, and I guess that's the thing when we're looking at relegations. Why are they being relegated? Because it changed the outcome of a race, or because it was really dangerous? You know, there's different factors going into it. This is now got to be my favourite race of the night, Scott.
The elite women's points race, and those at home know most of the names already because I was going through them before when the junior women were on the track. Emily Watts, Hayley Jones, Madison Taylor, Sophie Edwards, Chloe Moran, Isla Carr, Amber Pate, Claire Battle, Alex Martin Wallace, Ali Anderson, Nicola McDonald, Maeve Plouffe and Dahlia Haynes. Now, I did mention before that we have a lot of South Australians, 3 of them, first, second and third in the women's Omnium a couple of days ago. Fantastic performance. They now have Maeve Plouffe included in their team. So they were super strong before. Now they've got Plouffe. What does that make them?
Super strong, I suppose. I don't know. I think Plouffe, as I like to call her, I think Plouffe is born for points racing, quite frankly. I think she has all the attributes. But when you have been preparing for individual time trial, sometimes it just takes the edge off recovering in these longer races. So we'll see how she goes and how her positioning goes. But I think she's very capable if she's on a good one. But they do have a lot of options. So, you know, unless they start chasing each other and kind of throwing each other under the bus, I think that they will probably be reasonably united in their tactics.
Hard to see how the strength of South Australia can be beaten in this one. It'll be really interesting to see the tactics of the other riders, that's for sure. Now, Alyssa Polites has been strong this week, and on my printed out start sheet, she wasn't on there, so I didn't announce her name. But you can see the Victorian, the only Victorian in the dark blue colours. That's Alyssa Polites. She really has been strong.
She certainly has. I mean, she was sensational as a junior, but she's really stepped up to be quite handy already in the elites as her first year. Someone to watch. Oh, the gun goes, so they're on their way now for 80 laps. Now, it's an interesting one. I don't know why they do this. It's a quirk of the UCI, Scott. They change the distances of elite women's points racing. It's 80 at World Cups, 80 laps, or national championships, but then it's 100 laps and 25 kilometres at World Championships. So national championships and World Cups are shorter. I don't know why. I've never really understood that logic, but it does significantly change it because that extra 20 laps is enough to get rid of some of the sprinters. 20 laps less is enough that they can accrue a lot of points early and hang on. So just a bit of a difference. They don't.
Do they?
No, but cycling remains one of the only sports in the world to have a significant amount of inequity between the men and the women. It is getting better, but this is a quirky example of where the rules and the equity hasn't quite trickled down.
So my commentary input to that comment was, I don't understand that at all. Look, the longer the better. For what this event is, it's an track endurance event. You don't want to shorten everything to have the possibility for your sprinter enduros to be able to last longer. No, give the advantage to those that are built for the long, hard races. I'm still disappointed with the Madison being shortened to 50 kilometres. It was 60 when I used to ride it. If you go way back to when it wasn't, say, a World Championship event, they'd have 100 kilometre Madisons all the time. And they are a very, very different race from a 50k event. So it is what it is, and you've just got to race the distances. You've got to train for it and prepare for it. This one's 80. They've done 70. They've done 75 laps to go. Cracking field, it is to be said.
Not a cracking pace yet. I think they'll probably roll around at least for the first sprint, maybe even for the second. But there's a number of riders out there who I think we can expect to be aggressive. One such rider, although maybe with that move I'll change my mind, is Emily Watts, who just swung up from second wheel. I have a strong dislike for that, but I have a strong like for Emily Watts, so she shouldn't take that personally. That indicates to me that maybe she doesn't have sensational legs. She's hasn't had the week she expected to, that's for sure, but she was the under-23 road champion last year. She's more than capable and a very good individual pursuiter. So tonight might be the night she finds her legs.
What she did do when she swung up was find the wheel of Maeve Plouffe, because she's now on the outside. Maeve Plouffe just beside her, and 72 laps to go. You can see them all bunching up because they're getting closer and closer to this first of the intermediate sprints. 3 wide as they go down the back straight. Sophie Edwards on the inside, Maeve Plouffe in the middle. So she's the one with the black helmet with the white stripe. And behind her, Emily Watts. So now we're starting to come to that first sprint, and it's Plouffe over the top, just continually looking over her shoulder to make sure no one's coming from behind. And there is someone coming from behind. It's Alex Martin-Wallace, the Queenslander. 3 wide around the outside. Plouffe really sort of flapping side by side there. Pinball machine in the middle for Maeve Plouffe. And really strong on the inside. So good sprinting by Martin-Wallace, but just didn't position herself well. Trying to have to do too much to go around the outside. And Maeve Plouffe, I think she was just trying to muscle her way around to the victory. But by the time they all came around the outside, she was like a pinball.
Yeah, that was not the kind of sprint that suits her strengths. She doesn't have a huge amount of just raw acceleration, but she's so incredibly powerful. So she will sprint exceptionally well and be almost unbeatable from second wheel or 2 or 3 up when she gives a little bit of distance and runs onto it. But when it comes down to this kind of sprint where they are starting to just muscle around, she doesn't quite have that raw speed. You know what? If she hadn't been focusing on the individual pursuit, which is very much about regulating speed. I think that could be a little bit different, but that's where she is at the moment. Hayley Jones, the Queenslander, on the move with Emily Watts. They're not going ahead with it, but the pace has certainly picked up. Hayley Jones has been kind of the teammate of the championships with how well she's ridden for and supported Alex Martin-Wallace, who won the scratch race the other night, with the absolutely dedicated assistance of Hayley Jones. Hayley has represented Wales at the Commonwealth Games here in 2018. She's a very accomplished rider. She took a little bit of time off the track and had a little bit of a break from riding, but it's great to see her back, and she certainly knows the racecraft more than a good portion of the field out there. She's one of the more experienced.
Pace comes off. They'll come around now to get 64 laps to go. And one sprint down, and Plouffe leads the way. 5 points. Alex Martin-Wallace, good sprint from her, but just too far back. Needs to think about positioning a little bit more. And Taylor from Queensland just drifting off the front unintentionally. The peloton just easing off a little bit now. They're coming up to the back wheel. I think that's Edwards that closes the gap down, and Taylor now swings up to the top. So pace really off now, and a bit of a move right round the outside. This is Hayley Jones from Queensland. Alyssa Polides, quick to react to this one.
It's always the danger when it slows down that somebody will do this. Great move by Hayley Jones. That shows the experience she has. She knows that the minute that they back off is the opportunity to go. Even if you're hurting, you can bet everybody else is too. So great move from her, and what it does is it really helps to set up Martin-Wallace to not have to do too much. They receive the bell coming around for the sprint. It's Alyssa Polides that is leading out, and she's strong. She's whole. This is playing out very differently from the last sprint, but look at the might of the South Australians.
Plouffe trying to come up around the outside. She's not going to get there, and Polides, the under-23 Australian road champion, showing some sprint expertise as well. That's the second sprint, and it's 5 points to Polides. But in second place, Maeve Plouffe will hold on to the overall lead. 2 sprints down, and Plouffe being consistent, but Polides really showing that she's got some form in the legs. Edwards, third across the line, and Nicola McDonald. So 3 South Australians, second, third, and fourth. McDonald picking up the bronze medal in the Omnium behind Edwards with the silver. It was Chloe Moran that got the Omnium win, and then went and rode the team sprint as well. I was chatting to Brett Aiken actually earlier today about the women's team sprint and what they might do for the Commonwealth Games, and he actually just pointed out that in the team sprints yesterday, Chloe Moran, as a track endurance rider, had the fastest third lap. You think, okay, well, maybe you do look towards one of the team pursuiters to be the third wheel in the team sprint now. Who knows?
Not a bad option. Scott, now they've called Maeve Plouffe as winning that first sprint. So we'll see where that all comes out. But at the moment, this is what the scoreboard looks like. Maeve Plouffe is sitting on top on 8 points, with Alyssa Polides on 8 points too. Chloe Moran, 2 points, and Sophie Edwards, 2 points. Alex Martin-Wallace on 1 point. So 5 riders have been splitting those 8 opportunities for points.
So first and second in the first 2 sprints, just reversing their positions that time. So that's created a bit of a buffer with those 2 on 8, and then third place sitting on 2 points. But we're only 2 sprints in, although, as Kate Bates mentioned, shorter race than it probably should be for the national level. But hey, it is what it is. Iwi.
Call it a quirk. We can put it in the quirk pile with plenty of other things, including the delightful UCI rule that says without Commissaire's express permission, you're not allowed to wear black socks.
Oh, when did that happen? Is that on the track? Is that a track rule?
No, that is track and road. It's been there for quite a while. It's just that commissaires often just do nothing with it. But it is an odd and antiquated rule, sitting deep in the bowels of the UCI regulations.
I've always accused Lance Armstrong as the person to really normalised black socks in road cycling.
I think
So
they're
long
against
before
the rules for crimes against fashion. Emily Watts is on the move, so Emily may be feeling a bit better this evening, and certainly at any rate not wanting to just be a passenger in this race. She's hesitating though. She went, but she is looking over her shoulder a fair bit, and this is getting closed right down by Pilates, Scott. She is not going to let this go when they're coming around for the bell.
And that is because of the bell. So Pilates knew just how many laps it was to go. It was Sophie Edwards that went up to the back wheel of Watts. She's had to now come from behind to try and get back up to Pilates. And look at Chloe Moran around the outside. We just spoke about her speed from the team sprint, straight around the outside. And there's another South Australian in the mix. So 5 points going to Chloe Moran, 3 points, though, to Alyssa Pilates. She'll go to the outright lead because Maeve Plouffe wasn't in the sprint that time.
But Plouffe, she's got the chase on to Chloe Moran. Perhaps my thought of goodwill amongst the South Australians was wrong.
Pilates showing some real consistency. She didn't get that win, but she's been first or second in all 3 sprints now. Just the closing speed of Chloe Moran,
And
right on cue too, because we talk about how fast she was in the team sprint from the third wheel, and then comes out and proves it to everybody watching.
Yes, and my apologies, that was actually Amber Pate, not Maeve. Plouffe, there's, with the 5 South Australians, I got the helmet mixed up there as they flashed by. Hayley Jones on the move again. Alex Martin-Wallace not on many points, so maybe Jones is just trying to get some opportunities and wear the riders out.
Now, this is going to be interesting to see what happens back in the main field, because Alyssa Pilates, the only Victorian, she is back in the main field there. The gap has opened up really quickly here. Some real urgency from a couple of riders, including Amber Pate, to try and get out to this group. Alex Martin-Wallace is also going across, and there are 4 riders in front. Martin-Wallace trying to get there to make it 5, and this is going to be really dangerous.
Yeah, this is a very bad position for Pilates, and I feel for her, because when she hits the front now, as she's doing, to try and chase across, it will be in desperation. She will know that she has to make it across.
Well, this is the lead group. So we have 3 groups on the track. This is Amber Pate leading the group of 5. Martin Wallace has come across. Right at the very back, you can see right, just swinging up right at the very back. That was Maeve Plouffe, the Australian Individual Pursuit Champion. She is in a world of pain, and it looks as if she is completely out of contention now. There she is, right at the very back. So that's the last rider on the track, one of our biggest stars in Maeve Plouffe. She doesn't like the points race. She's out of contention.
I think Plouffe's done. She has... I stand by what she did in those first 2 sprints, that she's got the talent, but... the training for the 3 kilometres is certainly different to 20 kilometres, and it will be day over for her. She's about to get lapped by 3 of her state mates, as well as Hayley Jones and Alex Martin-Wallace. 6 South Australians out on the track. I'm not sure that's fair game in terms of team composition.
They get the bell for 41 laps to go, and they are over half a lap now in front of what's left of the peloton. So they're also in danger, the peloton, of being lapped. Alyssa Pilates, the overall leader, she is back in that main field. These are the riders duking it out for the points out in front, and it's Anderson that comes through ahead of Martin Wallace. Chloe Moran in third. So 5 points go to Anderson. It's the next of the South Australians to pick up points. They're all sharing the points at the moment for South Australia. And just in front of them, as they come into the finishing straight again, they'll see the peloton 40 metres in front of them. There they are. And they are about to get onto the back. So Alyssa Pilates' overall lead is about to be completely washed away. And there's the desperation move from Emily Watts and also Alyssa Pilates. Just as that breakaway group have gained a lap on the field, they'll all get 20 points each. So the new leaders will be now out of that group that just got the lap.
Well, this is where you have to pay attention to keep up, especially with so many South Australian skin suits out there, the 2 Queenslanders too. Alyssa Pilates, this will be very, very difficult to come back from, because the only job for the South Australians now is to make sure Pilates goes nowhere, because she is certainly the danger if she is able to, but they've got strength in numbers, as does Queensland.
So the new race leader, Chloe Moran of South Australia on 29 points. Ali Anderson from South Australia on 25. Martin Wallace from Queensland's on 24. Amber Pate on 21. And Hayley Jones from Queensland. She was the fifth of those riders to take a lap on the field. She's on 20 points, hasn't picked up any points in the sprints thus far. So those 5 riders getting an extra 20 for taking a lap and are now the clear leaders. The previous leader, Alyssa Polites, she's in 6th place and down on 11. So really bad situation for the young Victorian.
Well, Polites is really the only one that they need to watch like a hawk, because Sophie Edwards and Nicola McDonald, they're both on 3 points, but they could gain 20 points and potentially still not really be in contention after some more points are scored in these sprints. They've got 33 laps left to go, so 4 sprints left. So they're only halfway in terms of sprints, a little bit more than halfway in terms of distance.
The bunch has really swung up here. Ali Anderson has drifted off the front, and only now, just then, she looked over her shoulder and realised that there was no one behind, and then picked up the pace a little bit. She could have been further out in front had she taken a sneaky look a little bit earlier. So Anderson out in front. Alyssa Polites is going to close this one down. Smart move from Chloe Moran, though, straight onto the wheel of the Victorian. She's the overall leader, Chloe Moran. So but there's Anderson swinging up.
I mean, this puts Polites back in contention for the podium. So even though she will not be beating these two if she is breakaway compatriots with them, it will get her onto the podium. So as they come around for the bell and for the points, for Polites, it won't be about winning this sprint. It will be about trying to keep the break going.
She needs to get a lap on the field now to get the 20 points. She might have to drag these two with them. Both of them have taken a lap. Moran comes through to pick up the 5 points. Anderson with 3 for second. Polites with the 2 points for third. But both Moran and Anderson were part of that 5-rider group that took a lap earlier on. So they'd be quite happy to go around again. That would put them in a very handy position for the gold and the silver. Hayley Jones, though, from Queensland, shuts that one down. Sophie Edwards from South Australia immediately underneath. Look over the shoulder. Does she want to keep going? She hasn't gained a lap on the field. She only has 3 points.
But that wasn't an attack. That was a roll through while everybody swung to the top of the track. And I think they will need an attack rather than a roll through with a bit of distance, because once the peloton gains some intention. Alyssa Polites, I know she's desperate, but this is just wasting a bit of energy. There's no need for her she needs to be patient. She needs to sit in, get some rest, and hit them the moment they hesitate, position herself really well. There's no point her just going to the front and pulling turns. It's not her job to do.
3 sprints remain. Polites in 6th place on 13 points. She really does need to go for a lap, and perhaps sitting out the next sprint and just hitting them afterwards is the best opportunity to do so. Chloe Moran leads the way on 34 points. Ali Anderson from South Australia on 28. Then it's Alex Martin-Wallace on 24. And this is Amber Pate. Very strong rider on the road now. Good time trialist. Good in the individual pursuit as well. And give her a little bit of distance. It's going to be hard to bring her back. And the rider doing all the chasing, though, is the Victorian, Alyssa Polites. So that's tough for her to have to do the chase.
Yeah, that's a pretty rotten position to be in. And this is where I'll reiterate that comment about having 6 South Australians start the race. Is quite disproportionate to the size of the field. That's normally not allowed. I'm actually not sure how they do have 6 riders, Scott. Usually it would be 4 perhaps and the outgoing champion if that was the case, but 6 is a lot.
Well, this attack from Pate and the chase afterwards has really strung the peloton out, so they're starting to get very fatigued. It's the final night of competition, 5th night in fact. So a lot of hard racing from all of the riders, and now Pate has been reabsorbed. They swing up the track, being led by Chloe Moran, the South Australian with the white, slightly arrow-shaped helmet, and that has allowed everybody else to come back on. We've had a couple of withdrawals while this has all been happening, and I did see Nicola McDonald off the track, so she's pulled out, and also Madison Taylor. They're just on the inside there, the other rider, along with Maeve Plouffe, one of the pre-race stars, to not really like the points race too much.
And here goes Pilates. This is the kind of attack we've been waiting for. Waiting till the field's a bit dead and then really moving on it, and in perfect timing with the bell lap.
Sophie Edwards from South Australia lined up behind Pilates. And look at the Western Australian, Isla Carr, coming up around the outside. So Edwards not able to go up around Pilates, but Pilates trying to hold off the Western Australian this time. So while it's the South Australians that have been attacking her left, right and centre, then it's a Western Australian that pops over the top to pick up the maximum points.
I'm always curious when a rider earns their first points or wins their first sprint with 20 laps to go, because that is the first we've seen of Isla Carr. Look at the speed she's got in her legs. Where's she been? Perhaps struggling with position a bit, or perhaps warming into the race. I'm starting to honestly feel a little bit sorry for Pilates. She's so clearly outnumbered. She's trying. She's getting frustrated. She's made some moves that probably haven't helped her cause, but I can imagine that she would be growing exceptionally frustrated. Any points races like this that I rode turned into a mental game, because it was really difficult to keep your tactics in play when there was such a dominant force, particularly from one team around you.
Come around for 17 laps to go. 2 sprints remain. And Chloe Moran in not a super comfortable position, but she's so fast that she'd be feeling pretty confident right now. 36 points, and it's 8 points back to Ali Anderson from South Australia. Alex Martin-Wallace is on 24 points. So Martin Wallace, I thought she might have placed in a few more of these sprints. She only has 4 points from the sprints, 20 points from taking a lap, so she's not being as prominent as I thought she might have been.
Well, she's sitting in third. I wonder if she's just saving herself for that last sprint, which could make a very big difference. But it looks like she's going off the back, actually, Scott. As Hayley Jones goes off the front, if they don't ease off, she's definitely in a position to lose her bronze medal right now.
Amber Pate on the attack. Hayley Jones goes with it, and the rider looking the most comfortable shuts them down, and that's the overall leader, Chloe Moran. So Pate really aggressive, just not able to... and Pilates has gone down, so a touch of wheels, and Alyssa Pilates was sitting in 6th place on 16 points, and that's really unfortunate as she hobbles herself to get back up again. It's been a tough race for her. The early leader really quite profound in the first 4 sprints before the attack went, that took a lap with 5 riders. And you can see here just getting caught over, I think it was Hayley Jones's wheel, and falling to the inside. It's a long way from up there down onto the infield.
It is. I'm glad to see her get up. She does look a little bit rattled, but that's normal. But it's been a really frustrating race for her. And quite honestly, I think it would have played out differently if the team dynamics were different. It is just part of the national championships. So while I do feel sorry for her, it's not pity that I feel, but the field has been reduced yet again. And the Western Australians are still hanging in there.
And they did ease off there to allow Pilates a bit of time to try and get herself back into the race. You are allowed some laps out, but the race goes on, and while Amber Pate it is that leads at 11 laps to go into the back straight, Chloe Moran, Ali Anderson, the 3 South Australians, trying to duke this one out. It'll be the penultimate sprint and the final 5 points on offer. It's going to go to Chloe Moran. So the overall leader is going to extend her lead. And the unfortunate situation, you can just see as they went down the back straight then, the blue jersey of Alyssa Pilates walking back towards the stairs. So Alyssa not able to continue, so that crash has taken her out.
Well, now, interesting, I'm seeing play out both on the monitor that we can all see, but also on the track. I'm standing up to look over the top, is that the Queenslander sitting in third, Alex Martin-Wallace, has made her way back onto the bunch. You can see her sitting at the back there. Her teammate Hayley Jones has swung up the track, taking a lap out, essentially. I don't know about that, Scott. I mean, I'm not sure that Louise Jones, her mother, would endorse that. To my understanding, that is not on the rules. She will potentially be disqualified, and also Martin Wallace, because I think she's going to now duck down and help.
Well, she unfortunately it was her back wheel that Pilates fell over. So maybe there was a bit of an issue with her bike for a moment that put her out the back, and she thought, well, I'm too far behind now, I'll just swing up and get back in. But she will go one lap down. She'll lose the 20 points that she did gain from taking a lap earlier. And it won't change the top 4 in front of her, though, because Chloe Moran is on 41 points, Anderson on 30, the two South Australians. Then it's Martin Wallace on 24, tied on points with Amber Pate. So it's going to come down to this final sprint. Moran has enough points advantage that she will not be beaten. So Chloe Moran has the gold medal as long as she stays on her bike with 5 laps to go. And then Ali Anderson could still be beaten by Alex Martin Wallace or Amber Pate in this final sprint. So silver and bronze still up for grabs. Gold, that's going to South Australia with Chloe Moran.
Well, can Martin Wallace rally? She has been struggling, and off the back, can she rally and finish up there in this sprint and keep her equal position? If she beats Amber Pate across the line, then she will take that bronze medal. They just went around with 4 laps, 1 kilometre left. She's quite toward the back of the bunch, but it is a small bunch. So if the South Australians don't want to take responsibility here, it does put Martin Wallace in a good position, and that is what we are seeing happen. The South Australians moving up and down a bit. They actually only just moved back down, Scott, to box Martin Wallace in. Look at them. They're almost doing a boxy team's pursuit here.
Moran, Anderson, Martin Wallace and Pate, they are the top 4 in contention. Now the scoreboard here at the track is still saying that Haley Jones is in 5th place on 20 points. We'll wait to see what happens at the end of the race as it all unfolds. 4 South Australians now right out in front, being led by Chloe Moran. Chloe, she's smart enough to know that she can't be beaten from here. She's going to lead out this final sprint, and she's going to take Ali Anderson with her. Here comes Alex Martin Wallace, though, the Queenslander. She wants to get up on the podium higher. She wants the silver medal. And Martin Wallace, where has she been all night? She took a lap, but we haven't seen much of her, but she's there when it counts. 10 points across the line for the final sprint. She did have something left to give, and it was to win the final sprint. Great comeback from Alex Martin Wallace. Chloe Moran, she wins the gold, but Martin Wallace, it's going to be very tight. She should come away with the silver medal. Great final sprint.
Great final sprint, great tactics, because she was clearly exhausted. This was when Pilates went down, the only fall in tonight's race, thankfully. A shame to have her out of the race, but she did a great job. There's Chloe Moran, number 68. She looked a bit overwhelmed with that effort. Alex Martin Wallace coming up on her hip. Both of them highlighted as talents for the future that AusCycling are looking to work very closely with.
Very strong performance from Chloe Moran from South Australia. Good in the team sprints, great in the Omnium as well. And now another gold medal here in the Elite Women's Points race. And what a fantastic comeback. Hadn't really seen much of Martin Wallace, apart from taking a lap. Okay, that's a pretty good thing to do. But she wasn't prominent within any of the other sprints, to be honest.
But we flagged it. We said that. Her kind of style, if she could hang on, she's quick enough to be able to pull that out, especially after she won the scratch race the other night. We saw that speed.
So Moran coming into the final sprint, doing everything she could to help Ali Anderson hold on to the silver medal that she was in that position coming into this sprint. Martin Wallace having none of it, though. Round the outside, picks up the 10 points. And Amber Pate comes through to finish second with 6 points. And that means that Amber Pate also moves over the top of Ali Anderson. So Anderson goes from second down to fourth, with Martin Wallace taking the silver, Amber Pate in the bronze. But a fantastic win from Chloe Moran to come away with gold.
Mildly offensive for Ali Anderson to do that in the last sprint. The South Australians rode brilliantly. They came in as the hot favourites, albeit we thought Maeve Plouffe might make a much bigger impact. She did for the first 2 sprints, but she suffered quite dearly for that. Although the first 2 sprints, Scott, that's, nearly double the distance that she usually rides and trains for. So if we put it in that context, Not all individual pursuiters can points race at the same time. They're often capable of both, but the training is quite different.
I do know that Maeve wants to do more of the bunch events, the Omnium style events. So I spoke to her in January in Adelaide, and she was talking about that, in fact, that she wouldn't mind doing more than just individual and team pursuit. Well, might need to do a little bit of work in the points race if that's the case.
Well, I did that. I started my career as an individual pursuiter and got fourth at my first Olympics and thought that was me, and then I gave it up for points racing.
Second race now in the para-tandem sprint final, and the team in the second position, which is Stephen Kemp in the black skin suit and Shane Perkins, the pilot. They are one up. They win this, they get the gold medal. The South Australians, though, Bo Wooten, who's being piloted by Luke Zachariah, they'll be doing everything they can to try and stop them from doing so. They'll come around to get 2 laps to go, so they're doing the same 3 laps as you see in all of the other sprint races. Super short 3 laps, though, for the tandem, so you have to really quickly get up to speed.
The South Australian team 0.4 faster in qualifying, but the Western Australians took the first round.
And you can see the movement from Shane Perkins, the race craft. It's really hard in this to get both you and your second rider up to speed, but Perkins knew when he needed to go, and Bo Wooten is going to get a win. Absolutely fantastic pairing. Very fresh, these two, riding together. Some training sessions, but not much racing at all, and some race craft for Stephen Kemp and Shane Perkins. So well done to Kempy and to Perko for coming away with a win, 2 straight.
That was sensational. I love seeing Perko back on the track, and I think that this is a pretty phenomenal pairing. But there's a side of Perko that we're seeing here on the tandem that we didn't really get to see when he was racing individually, where he was quite... he had a lot of game face, let's just say. He got out on the track and was quite intimidating. But just the way that he reaches back and he pats Stephen Kemp on the back and lets him know how it's going, the way he was looking around during being so respectful of the other team, taking enough distance and not even coming close. Like, look, they really do. For what Shane Perkins has done in the past, he waits until they're well and truly past. He has a good look over the shoulder and he doesn't move down until he can accelerate again. So a lot of racecraft and experience shown by Shane Perkins there.
A little bit different for someone that you would see as a racing car driver and knows exactly how long his car is. Now it's more like he's towing a caravan. You've got to give yourself a little bit of extra room before you move down in front of the other rider. So Stephen Kemp and Shane Perkins picking up their first national title together. Will it be the first of many? A new pairing. And with Birmingham coming up, this is looking great. Paralympic Games in Paris is certainly what they are looking at. Shane, riding from West Australia, he's a Victorian, of course, and for those of you that do know, he did go and race for Russia, missed out on the 2016 Australian team for the Olympic Games, and went and transferred across to Russia. Didn't get to go to the last games in Tokyo for them, but has gone through the process to be nationalised back as an Australian. So he's able to come back and compete for Australia in the para racing, but based out of Western Australia these days with his wife Christine, who is Western Australian. It'd be unfamiliar for him even for us looking at it, but unfamiliar for him to be looking down and seeing the yellow colours of West Australia.
Yeah, indeed. It's great to see Stephen Kemp coming along, because this is the first season he's had some impact out there, and I think that this pairing could go a very long way. And while Perkins brings the experience in the racecraft, he doesn't do it on his own, and Kemp, he is the engine behind. So good luck to them on their journey. I feel as though we might be discussing Kemp and Perkins for quite a time to come.
Next race coming onto the track, and we saw a few of these young men in the final of the under-19 team pursuit, most of them coming out again for the 40-lap under-19 men's scratch race. It's 10 kilometres, 40 laps of the track, and from Queensland we have Noah Blannon and Ephraim Martinson. They also have Tyler Tompkinson, who's been super strong this week, winning the points race, and also the Madison. Jarlath Whittaker from Queensland, so 4 riders from Queensland. South Australia, they have Jamie Anderson, Connor Doyle, Michael Bryant and Leo Zimmerman, the individual pursuit champ. Tasmania with William Eves and also Hayden van der Ploeg. And the Victorians with the Omnium champion and Team Pursuit champ Taryn Cook. Nate Haddon was in the Team Pursuit as well. Also Angus Gill and Dylan Proctor-Parker. He was in the Team Pursuit also. And Logan Taplin. So strong contingent of Victorians. The ACT with just the one rider, but it's Cameron Rogers. He's been super strong. Benjamin Anderson from New South Wales. He'll be teamed up with Andre Dubier. So again, a tough one for Cam Rogers. The scratch race, not the event that he's best suited at. He's a little bit better for the points race, but still on his own. Tough ride for him to see how he goes. He's such a strong rider. Victoria probably looking like in the strongest position if they do work together. And they do have a history of doing that, the Victorians.
Yeah, they've been a bit of a mixed bag, the old working together, haven't they? The Victorians. So let's see what happens here in the under-19 men. You're right, they do have a history, but in the elite men's Omnium, we've seen a little bit of cutthroat tactics between the state mates and also in the under-19 women as well. So 40 laps, 10K. This goes pretty rapidly, and for the most part, these races aren't ridden slowly. They tend to just gain a bit of speed in the first couple of laps, Scott, and then from then on there'll be a lot of riders just hanging on for dear life, trying to get to the finish with any kind of shape and see if they can sprint. Sometimes scratch races are won in breakaways, sometimes a lap is taken, but that is not the majority of times.
Dylan Proctor-Parker from Victoria, third in the individual pursuit, but he caught his opponent, so they didn't give him a time. He did finish the race though, and his coach Hilton Clark told me that he rode a 3:18.5, which was quicker than the race for the gold medal. So really good performance from Dylan Proctor-Parker. He's number 106 down towards the back of the peloton now.
I like how you did your homework between sessions there, Scott. We were quite curious when they stopped the clock about what time that he had gone across in. He's obviously got very good form. Benjamin Anderson, I mentioned earlier, he is out there. He won the kilometre time trial earlier on in today's session, in the afternoon session, 1:03.8. So he has got rapid legs. We can expect him to just sit and wait though. Hope that it does come down to a sprint and look after himself. In the meantime for that, currently he is sitting right down the back, so following protocol for that tactic.
Angus Gill comes through, flick of the elbow from him, swings up the track, the universal sign for be careful, I'm about to swing off the front, don't overlap the wheel or you'll be a bit of a goose.
Well, you'll be on your butt with some splinters most likely, so you do need to watch out for that.
And the next one to swing up as they go across the line is Nate Haddon. So both Angus Gill and Nate Haddon from Bendigo in Victoria. And I mention that because I've been based there ever since I moved back from racing in Europe and travel around a little bit more now, but I still had spent a lot of time in Bendigo. So I ride a lot with Angus Gill and Nate Haddon. Well, I used to before I stopped riding about 6 months ago. I've got a bit of work to do, ladies and gentlemen. Get myself back to fitness.
You're giving yourself away, Scott.
I am. Well, I've been on camera a couple of times, but it's pretty obvious.
Oh,
it's pretty obvious.
Stop it. There's the two New South Wales riders, Anderson and Dubier. They did a very short turn and resumed their position at the back of the peloton. A little bit risky to be all the way at the back. It can be a bit of an elastic band. But while I think I hexed them, Scott, because I said these races tend to be very rapid and they just gain speed as they're going. But they're not clipping along too fast, actually, at the moment. And the big way to tell that is when the riders do swing off, they're just floating up the top, waiting for the back of the peloton to catch up so that they can drop back down into it. So nobody taking particular responsibility at this point. And that does happen too, doesn't it, Scott, when you have a field where a lot of the states really back their sprinters and their ability to win if it comes down to the finish. And there's certainly a couple of teams in that position.
They'll come around to get 27 laps to go. No attacks just yet. Pretty average speed from them. And in second position, just now on the front, it's Tyler Tompkinson from Queensland. He won the points race a couple of days ago, and if you were tuning in to the racing last night, or 2 nights ago I should say, the points race as the final discipline of the Omnium really came down to an incredible conclusion for the final sprint, and Tompkinson went from the silver medal position into bronze as things changed with Cameron Rogers going on the attack with Nate Haddon as well, right for that final sprint. So a thrilling finale in the Omnium for the under-19 men. Looking to do something similar here with 25 laps to go of the scratch race for them. Good sized field, 19 riders, not the full amount allowed on a track. 24 is the maximum in individual races on the 250 metre velodromes. I think they could squeeze a few more in.
I think they could too. I mean, they've been having qualifying events to get rid of 1 or 2 riders, which I find a bit bizarre. But again, rules are rules. Conscious that we don't have a lap counter, so we will keep you up to date with how far to go. You'd get a little bit dizzy trying to count yourself. They will come around with 23 laps left to go, nearly the halfway mark, just over 5 kilometres. If you translate that to what happens on the road when you're coming into a sprint, the last 5 kilometres is not generally where people attack or could get away. It is a bit different on the track, but certainly 5 kilometres is not a huge opportunity for these riders. They are kind of running out of time if anybody does want to be too aggressive and make a bit to go. 22 laps to go. Thank you very much, producer, for the lap counter there. Cam Rogers, he's pretty quiet out there tonight. He just did a 50 metre turn, swung up, happily drifting down to the back, looking quite comfortable.
21 laps to go. Haddon comes through. Now it's Martinson from Queensland, short turn and swings up as well. None of the riders wanting to waste any energy on the front. Thinking about that final sprint and maximising what they have left in their legs. And likewise, no riders at this point thinking they've got no chance in the sprint, wanting to go on the attack.
Cam Rogers, I'd back him for a good late attack. A little bit of a smoky with about 6 laps to go. That's one of my favourite all-time scratch race winning moves, is the 1.5k to go attack. You have to ride a very big gear if you're going to do that, because you really only have one chance and you'll be done and dusted for the sprint if they catch you. But it's a brave one, but it's an entertaining one. I have a feeling Cam Rogers may be going for something like that, given his incredible speed and skill that he has shown this week. Could just be tired too, Scott. It's been a long week.
It has. A lot of racing every night. Full program. Oceania Championships for many of these riders next weekend as well, as they come around 17 laps to go, and it's the first of the attacks, and it's no surprise that it's coming from the Queenslander, Tyler Tompkinson, the winner of the points race, winner of the Madison, and he wants a hard race. He might have done this a little bit earlier though, because as we get in towards 10 laps to go, they'll really start to think a bit more about that final sprint and saving energy for it. It was Leo Zimmerman that shut that one down very quickly, I might add. So Zimmerman looking really powerful.
And nobody wants to ride on with it. This is the opportunity where somebody can go whack. You know, when you're hurting, everybody else is hurting. And then the Tasmanians are throwing it down. William Eves making the move there, but that attacking from the front is only half an attack. It's an acceleration. So I'm not sure that was actually earnest. He swung up. The Victorians want none of it, Scott. On and off in these final 14 laps they just got to go, or 15 laps to go.
What it is creating, though, is a change in tempo and configuration of the peloton. A couple of little gaps opening up, a few riders swinging up from midfield because they didn't want to get too close to the front. So this could create some opportunities to really go for a race-winning attack. Now it seems to be back to the status quo we saw from before. Everybody hard on the wheel, strung out, single file, and perhaps that kind of opportunity has gone missing. Haddon swings up. 2 riders from New South Wales, both Anderson and Dubier, both likewise quickly onto the front and then out of the way, looking for wheels to get back into.
Well, they've been joined all race, the two of them following each other. If they're coming down to a sprint, they are looking to Anderson. And Dubier is certainly in charge of looking after him. He's even looking over his shoulder to make sure he's on the wheel. 2 Victorians, 2 Queenslanders. They are starting to get a wee bit organised out there. The Tasmanians are close together, as are the South Australians. 10 laps to go.
Tompkinson swings through and up and out of the way. Van der Ploeg likewise. And Tasmania showing a little bit of intention here. 9 laps to go. And this is Will Eaves. He showed a little bit of animation before, but it didn't go far. And let's see what happens now as the change in pace really picks up in the peloton. They swing high on the track. Is anyone willing to dive down underneath? Where's Tompkinson? What's he want to do? Victoria, one of the quick riders to go for it. And it is indeed the Victorian Dilla Proctor Parker. We saw him in the individual pursuit. He'll come around and get 7 laps to go, and if you leave this sort of rider out in front for too long, it's going to be hard to bring him back. 7 laps to go. We've got a Victorian off the front. This is the biggest gap we've seen from anyone so far, with Cameron Rogers from the ACT not having any of it, chasing it down.
I thought this was the move that Rogers would make at about the 6th lap mark. He doesn't seem to have the legs today to be quite as in control, but he does have the intention. That gap is back. Is this where they'll hesitate or they'll keep going? Because this will decide what these final laps look like.
Zimmerman from South Australia underneath. So as they've all swung up the track, it's now 5 laps to go, and Zimmerman looking dangerous. He closed down an attack earlier and looked very strong indeed. You can hold on from this far. It's not that long to go. He's coming around to get 1 kilometre, 4 laps of the track. What's the peloton doing? They're looking at each other. Zimmerman with a big advantage over Cameron Rogers leading the peloton.
This is a beautiful tactic. Zimmerman just has to absolutely commit, because he will have nothing left as the peloton are chasing. Cam Rogers was taking the speed. They were gaining some ground, but he's swung up. He's taken 4 riders with him. This gap is not closing, but the Queenslanders are now trying to fix this.
It's going to get tough for Zimmerman from here. He has a big advantage, but he has 500 metres to go. 2 laps of the track, and Queensland is coming. Martinson, he has Tompkinson on the wheel. 3 Queenslanders on the front of the peloton. Zimmerman starting to tire. Martinson's closing things down. There's a look over the shoulder from the peloton from Tompkinson. Is anyone else coming? Look over the shoulder from Zimmerman as he goes into the last lap. Down the back straight. The gap is still big. Zimmerman might hold on for this. They're coming at him though. Tompkinson, the Queenslander, he's already won a couple of gold medals, but he's not going to win the gold here because it's going down to South Australia. Leo Zimmerman holds on. What a fantastically timed attack, and the power to finish it off and get gold.
Magnifico. That was so well done. That was
exciting, wasn't it?
I said it. That's my favourite scratch race move. Thank you, Leo Zimmerman, for entertaining us. With 2 laps to go, I dead set thought this poor bugger, he is going to get swallowed up so quickly by those Queenslanders. But a moment's hesitation, it made me nervous when he looked over his shoulder with a lap to go. I thought, don't look over your shoulder, just go. At this point, it's nothing about holding on as much as you can. There it was as he overtook the rider. But that gave him a little bit more impetus, I think, because he thought, gee, I may actually have this. And he found a little bit more. Look at this celebration. Good on him. What a great ride. Queenslanders did an exceptionally good job of attempting to bring that back.
Tompkinson holds on for the silver medal, and it was Taryn Cook from Victoria getting the bronze. I'd like to see the final lap split for Leo Zimmerman, because he was certainly not negative splitting the last 5 laps. He was decreasing all the way around, decelerating, but hey, it doesn't matter.
I think that last lap was probably quicker than the second last lap, because in that second last lap I thought, oh, well, you know, at least he gave it a go, but fortune favours the brave, and that was a great ride from him. Tell you what, though, we won't get away with that again. So that's his one time to win a national title with a flyer with 5 or 6 laps to go.
Good attempt from Queensland to try and bring him back, just didn't quite get organised early enough. And Tyler Tompkinson coming away with the silver medal behind Leo Zimmerman from South Australia. And it was Taryn Cook, who was certainly one of the pre-race favourites to go for gold here. He won the Omnium for the under-19s, picks up the bronze medal for Victoria. So a good ride from Leo Zimmerman. He did indicate earlier that he was looking good. He closed down one of the attacks. very rapidly. I thought, oh, he really does show some good form in the legs, and then perfectly timed. We're talking about the first attack might not be it, but it might string the peloton out. It might change the pace. They swing up, gaps open up. That can create the opportunity. That's what we saw there with Leo. He really seized the moment, and well-deserved. Comes away with a gold medal.
And that's Ashan Kudinoff with his bike. Here we have it. We're watching the Queenslanders trying to catch back Zimmerman. They did a very good job, peeled off and left it up to Tompkinson. Tompkinson held on quite bravely as he could. Zimmerman taking the win, and Tompkinson able to take the second. Great teamwork from the Queenslanders.
So Zimmerman ahead of Tompkinson, Cook, Dubier from New South Wales. Will Eves was quite animated for Tasmania. He was 5th across the line. Logan Taplin from Victoria was 6th. Nate Haddon, the youngster from Bendigo, in 7th, with Goliath Whittaker there as well. So Whittaker from Queensland in 8th. Cam Rogers from ACT, he was in 9th place with Dylan Proctor-Parker, who was kind of the guy that started all the attacks happening towards the end. He was the man that animated the race towards the end, and he finished up with 10th place.
Well, that's the thing about scratch races is often you might be the one that the commentators speak about the entire race and end up barely in the top 10. It tends not to be the kind of race like a points race where if you're constantly being mentioned and at the front, it means that you will finish with a solid result. The last event of the championships for the Elite Championships, we have now the Elite Men's Omnium. They finish with their points race, 100 laps to ride. Looks like the lads are having a little bit of a joke. There are quite a few solid smiles out there, Scott. It's like they're either relaxed or terrified.
Early grimaces.
Yes.
I would think.
The nervous laughter.
So a change in leadership after the elimination, relegation from one of the positions from the Tasmanian in Josh Duffy. So he sits in 2nd place now on 104 points. And Graham Frisley at the top of the track for Victoria, he's on 112. So 8-point advantage for Frisley over Duffy. Stephen Hall from Western Australia, very handy rider in these bunch races. He sits in 3rd place on 102, only 2 points away from the silver medal position as we stand. So all of the points they've gained through the first 3 disciplines of the Omnium, all added together. They start with that, and Frisley leads the way on 112 points. 100 laps of the track, sprint every 10 like we've seen in all of the point races. 5, 3, 2 and 1 points on offer. Double points of 10, 6, 4 and 2 on the final sprint. As we go further down, Henry Dietz of Victoria sits in 4th place on 96. Blake Agnoletto in 5th place on 88. Now, that's the rider that was disappointed with what happened in the elimination, being relegated against Graham Frisley, but still had 3rd place in that particular race. So still good points on offer. He just didn't pick up enough points in the earlier rounds. So the race leader is Graham Frisley on 112. He's in the new colours of Victoria, the dark blue torso with the black helmet. So of the Victorian colours out there, you can pick the one with the blue torso with the black helmet, and that's Graham Frisley. There he is, just the back of the shot, sitting just behind Oliver Bledden from South Australia. Kane Richards comes through and swings up. 96 laps to go when they come around next time. James Moriarty. James sits in 6th place. He's on 86 points. Up and out of the way from him. It'll be good to see what the Western Australians do. The 2nd position on the track there now is Stephen Hall, who does sit in 3rd place, holding down the bronze medal. He'd love to come away with the medal. He's pretty consistent at national championships in the bunch races for being there or thereabouts in the medals. He knows how to put himself in the right position. He has some real character and some guts.
Well, he's been out there for well over a decade doing these...
So he has some age as well, you're saying?
He's got some experience, some vintage, we would say. He knows how to ride a bike race and he knows how to suffer. So even on the times where he's starting, some gaps are opening up, he's starting to suffer a bit, he has this incredible ability to just grovel his way back to the bunch and be there again in the next sprint. It's really impressive.
Connor Lay leads them down the back straight. The individual pursuit champion of Australia. 3 in a row, and an Australian record this time. 4:10.1. It's not bad. But then when you consider how good that is and how fast it is, as you see our first attacks, as we're starting to get ready for the sprint, and it's Josh Duffy in second position. So they'll come around to get the bell. This is the first of our intermediate sprints. 5 points on offer. Duffy was hoping to come into this in the overall race lead. A mistake in the elimination means that he's in second place and chasing points to get over the top of Graham Frisley. And here he comes. He won the kilometre time trial this afternoon. 1 minute flat. Very fast indeed, and he'll come across to pick up the first 5 points. So handy sprint from Josh Duffy, and 2 Tasmanians in the race, but they're showing that they have one objective, and it's for Josh Duffy to try and come away with the win.
Well, Dalton Stretton has been his very loyal lieutenant this week. In all of the bunch racing, we don't expect it to be any different in this points race, especially when Duffy could use that extra support. And Stretton, not on the best form he's been, but doing an incredibly good job of helping. We can see that here, just setting Duffy up perfectly. And when you are able to provide that kind of lead out in this kind of race, it's not just about getting him over the line first, it's also about taking points off other riders. So Stretton is quick enough and strong enough to be able to sneak some of those points and prevent his competitors from getting any of them.
First sprint done, and points to Josh Duffy. Closes the margin now to 3 points to Graham Frisley. Henry Dietz, 3 points for second in that sprint, following a good wheel in Josh Duffy to make sure he comes through to pick up some good handy points. And the 2 points going to Dalton Stretton. So you're right, Kate, it's great that he was able to hold on for some points, because it does take some away from Josh Duffy's competitors. And Connor Lay, 4th across the line, 1 point for him for West Australia. So Stephen Hall, no points gained for him. And also, interestingly, Graham Frisley, the overall leader, no points for him in that first sprint. So the gap down to 3 points now between Frisley and Duffy. 7 points further back to Stephen Hall from Western Australia.
Well, this will be a very long race for these guys, with each sprint having to be pretty hotly contested because of how close it is overall. It's not just about the points race itself, it's obviously about where they started. Some at a disadvantage because of the rounds of the Omnium that we've seen so far. But Frisley certainly has some good staying power. He'll have a target on his back.
82 laps to go. They'll get the bell the next time around. Frisley, look over the shoulder from him. And here comes Josh Duffy. So Stretton on the front. Duffy just going over the top of him and then balking to try and get Stretton back underneath to start this lead out. It's too far. It's too late. It's 81 laps to go. The sprint is on, and they didn't time it that well, Josh Duffy. So as they go down the back straight, we'll see what Henry Dietz is in second position. So Henry Dietz, he's sitting there in 4th place overall, trying to pick up some more points, and he's going to be able to do that here. So fantastic sprinting. Liam Walsh. And that hesitation from the Tasmanians to try and perfectly get in order. It was way too late to be doing that. Liam Walsh straight round the outside, picked up the 5 points. Henry Dietz with another second place to get 3. So that's a handy little haul from Henry Dietz. That'll put him up on equal 3rd place with Stephen Hall.
Well, and it was also very obvious of the Tasmanians. So now every time Dalton Stretton goes to the front, somebody just has to follow Josh Duffy, knowing exactly what he'll do there. A good sprint win here from Liam Walsh, and I'm glad he looked over his shoulder and took the pedal off the accelerator, because you don't need to waste any energy at all. You only need to win by a millimetre. Certainly not too much longer.
He also needs to be a little bit careful, because he did swing up nice and early, because he knew he was going to win the sprint and just swung up the track early. But if there was a rider sort of coming from behind, Commissaires would certainly look very poorly on that kind of manoeuvre.
Well, it's also the perfect time for an attack, because if somebody attacks and at the same time as everybody is swinging up and hesitating a bit. And that's where gaps open up quickly, and they have to make a decision about what to do. Our first earnest attack of the day.
Oliver Bledden he was prominent in the points race. Different type of points race at the end of the Omnium, though. They're a little bit more tired, but second place in the points race on day one, but he led right down towards the last couple of sprints when Zach Marriage was able to jump a lap on the field and pick up the points to gain the win overall. So Bledden, certainly a rider you would expect to be very good in this.
Well, he just swung up the track when the gap came down to about 30 metres, the peloton behind him. It says to me that he's keeping a real eye on his energy expenditure and making sure he's not trying to go away with a break unnecessarily if the gap does not seem to be extending out. And there is a fine line, because you'll have heard me say many times, Scott, that when you attack you need to commit and not constantly look over your shoulder. But I'd say there's many exceptions to that rule that I throw out, and Oliver Bledden handled that attack really well.
Stephen Hall on the top of the track from Western Australia, equal third position on 102 points with Henry Dietz. They'll come around to get the bell next time, so not ideally positioned towards the front for Stephen Hall at the wrong time. He's gone further back in the field. He'll have no points this time. So that's an unfortunate situation for Stephen Hall, a rider that's really racing for the overall points. Walsh again comes through, I think it is. And, very close with Graham Frisley. First time we've seen Frisley. Third sprint, the first time we've actually seen him really go for one and even doing a wheel stand across the line. It was Moriarty from Queensland that was trying to hold off Frisley. Close, didn't quite pick it, Kate.
Well,
this was just a little bit earlier on with the attack that we saw.
From Bledden, but he did swing up. He gave up with that. Josh Duffy moving to the top of the track. We've just seen New South Wales fairly conservative at this point in the race, not really sticking their head out in the wind. The Queenslanders are using a fair bit of energy. I think that they're in a really good position, but they do need to watch that and make sure that they're a little bit calmer.
Still waiting for confirmation, because I can see the officials squinting their eyes onto the computer screen to just make sure who got to the line first. Very close between Moriarty and Frisley. And no extra points given for a wheelie across the line either. Degree of difficulty.
I think Ryan Bailey, our Olympic champion from 2004, his gold medals were probably a little bit shinier because of the wheelies he used to do.
You can see Duffy trying to come three wide around the outside. It's too hard with the speed of these riders. Moriarty, Frisley coming over the top. I'd go inside. What do you think? That was really close. I think inside, but then a bit of closing speed from Frisley. I think,
I want to say Frisley, but I've noticed that they have not updated the scoreboard yet, so they're certainly trying to figure that one out. Stephen Hall, he's keeping the pace up, not wanting to back off there at all. A break would be a good opportunity for him to just keep a fairly consistent pace and not the on again, off again.
Three riders off the front. They now have scrutinised the last sprint and given it to James Moriarty. So 3 points go to Graham Frisley. Gap now 4 points between he and Josh Duffy. Stephen Hall remains on 102. Likewise with Henry Dietz, so equal in third position. But there's Hall out in front now with Henry Dietz. So the two riders tied in third position, slightly off the front, but not anymore, as Blake Agnoletto shuts things down. And a little bit of a move now coming from Declan Tresize. Good movement, opportunity. Agnoletto goes over the top as well. 61 laps to go, and Tresize down the back straight. He has a big gap. Can Agnoletto close it down? It doesn't look as if he's gaining anything. So Declan, Queensland, another Queenslander in the mix. He'll pick up the 5 points. Agnoletto, he'll get 3. Henry Dietz will get 2 points. And I think it's Harvey that might have come through from New South Wales to pick up the 1 point, but has gone on with it. Or Anderson, I should say.
And a good move to go on with it too, because when they've been sprinting that quickly, it is a very vulnerable time for the riders. It's Rowan Hayden-Smith, the New South Wales rider. He also rode in the Kieran and did pretty well too. So he is fairly rapid rider. I'm not sure he's in his necessary comfort zone in a break in a points race, but good on him for getting out there. He did get some of those points in that intermediate sprint. This is dangerous insofar as it's the first break that has really made much impact, and if any riders want to keep going with it, there will be quite a few riders that are on their knees at the moment. The South Australians know it. They have gone together.
Two riders from South Australia and two handy riders indeed. Gold and silver from the points race on the first day of competition, but they haven't really muscled their way off the peloton. So Kane Richards from Queensland, he shuts that one down, and it's all back together still with a couple of little gaps in the peloton.
I mean, the thing is, to be honest, Frizzley and Duffy and Dietz, they could let Bledden go. They could let Marriage go, get a lap, and they still wouldn't be really too close to their overall points. So they do need to consider it in some of those moments. The Queenslanders, James Moriarty on the move. Now, he is back in 7th. He does have some work to do if he wants to get onto the podium. This is not the kind of move I would expect from Moriarty, more of a point gainer along the way, but a big move from him. And the biggest gap we've seen so far opened up to nearly a third of a lap already, and the peloton is not chasing. The Queenslanders are now on the front in Walsh. He's leading the way. Finn Walsh, the Queenslander, leading the way there. It's a solid move from Moriarty.
Well, because he is down in the overall standings, but he's only at 7th place on 86 points. He is less than half a lap from the back of the peloton. 20 points on offer. That'll take him up into 3rd place overall. Plus, he's going to pick up the 5 points now for this next sprint. So that's guaranteed he'll get the 5 points. He's a strong enough rider that you would think, unless something special happens in the peloton, that he should be able to get to the back of them. Duffy is going to go and try and go for the minor placings. As we see, 5 points come through now for Moriarty in the sprint for 2nd, 3rd and 4th. It's going to be very close. But over the top, we saw Liam Walsh pick up 3 points just over the top of Graham Frizzley. Now, what's the peloton do over the next couple of laps? Because that is crucial to what happens for James Moriarty. He's hurting.
Oh, and there was a bit of a fall. Duffy is down. That is not good for him. He's not getting up immediately. He's looks like he's a bit shell-shocked, as you are when you fall at that speed.
Well, Duffy down. Moriarty is about to get caught as well. So he didn't quite get to the back of... He wasn't far behind the peloton. It was just that sprint came at the awkward time, but he did pick up the 5 points. So Moriarty is back.
Yeah, and a valiant effort from him. He did get out of his seat just in front of us here. Scott going over the start-finish line, and he had a bit of jelly legs happening. So this is where Josh Duffy... Oh, it was a case of swing up, swing down, overlap. That was not Josh Duffy's fault, but that would have hurt. He's gone down quite hard. We can see, not on camera at the moment, but we can see that his bike is just getting fixed. He's getting some his handlebars straightened, so it looks like he does intend to get back out there. There he is. He looks calm at least and cool, and he's jumping back on the bike.
And he is coming back on, so he'll get it back in within the required number of laps. He'll be fine. But it also does point out the change in the regulations. The only people on the apron of the track, which is where Josh Duffy's riding now, are the officials. We were previously allowed to have mechanics and coaches on the apron as well to give instructions, and then when there's a mishap, quickly get to them with a spare wheel or a spare bike. It does take a little bit longer now for that to happen.
I think that's a bit of a bummer. It was such an important thing when I was racing. I loved having the coaches there. Now, a little bit of confusion because Josh Duffy thought that he had another lap out. He's just been waved back on. In fact, he may not even get back on and rejoin this race. That was an error that could have been avoided. Matt Gilmore giving in the hurry on there. That's a devastating turn of events, but there are points on the line. The bell was rung. 5 points will go to the Queenslander.
Declan Trezise picks it up. So he's been animated in this race so far, but he's now been joined by 3 riders, including the points race champion from day one, Zach Marriage. Blake Agnoletto's there as well. and there's another attack just coming out of the peloton.
Duffy's still not on the back of the bunch after that error and after the fall. And I'm not sure he'll make it. If he does, he'll certainly be carrying a lot of fatigue.
Well, Duffy's in a lot of trouble. So really unfortunate. The peloton is completely splintered around the track. So they've really put the pressure on just when Josh Duffy didn't need it. And you can see out here, this is the second group being led by Oliver Bledden. Henry Dietz is there as well. Also Kane Richards and Graham Frisley. They are chasing this group out in front. Ether, Agnoletto, Trezise and Marriage.
Marriage in particular is quite low on the points overall. They don't need to worry too much about that. Good for him, but, you know, he's just another rider that's able to contribute.
Now we can see this is the lead group of 4. Just in front of them is Josh Duffy, second place in the overall standings. So this has been a terrible situation. That's Dalton Stretch and the drop back to help Duffy try and get back onto the peloton. Just around the bend there is the rider in the silver medal position. It's been an absolute disaster, clipping the wheel of Graham Frisley for Josh Duffy, because it has put him almost out of contention. I don't see how he comes back from this position.
He would lose 20 laps, so he would go back to 92 points.
20 points.
20 pardon me, 20 points. So that would put him back to about 7th position, and that would be break your spirit a little bit, that kind of event.
Well, there he is, the Tasmanian. He has been caught by the 2 groups that have come together now out in front. So he will go 20 points down and be out of his silver medal contention. They'll come around to get 32 laps to go, not far until the next sprint. Pace has gone out in front with the 2 groups coming together. The overall leader, Graham Frisley, is there. And Moriarty, who's been very animated, is trying to come across. He is in the second group. Frisley is there. Henry Dietz is also there. Stephen Hall is the rider that wasn't in that front group, and he's in a bit of trouble as well. So the rider in the bronze medal position, Stephen Hall from Western Australia, he's out the back also. So this race is really changing. Agnoletto comes into the final straight, and it's Frisley over the top. So the overall leader picks up 5 points, just ahead of Blake Agnoletto. Agnoletto sits in 5th place at the moment, but there's a real chance he'll go up to 4th pretty soon, because they are about to catch Stephen Hall, and both the silver and the bronze medal positions are about to fall right down the standings.
Well, James Moriarty is now down in 7th on 91 points. Stephen Hall is about to be on 82 points. He's just about to lose a lap, which is a shame for him. You're right, this is just being turned on its head. Very comfortable for both Frisley and Henry Dietz, though. Moriarty at it again. Brave move, considering how much he struggled after that last sprint. I suppose he is really just going for the intermediate sprints to move up, but he's got a lot of work to do.
A little bit of recovery for him. He's looking okay. He's out there with Jordan Villani, and they are exactly half a lap from the back of the peloton. So it's looking pretty good for them, that they might be able to get themselves around. And if Moriarty does this, that will then put him again right up there in contention. He'll move into the silver medal position.
Well, the Queenslanders, Trezise and Walsh, were doing a pretty good job of bluffing. New South Wales sent Rowan Hayden-Smith up there to maybe make some impact. That worked for approximately 50 metres. He's gone now, and it looks like these pairing are going to get onto the back. It's not about collecting the points, it's about getting that 20 points, and that puts Moriarty back in the game.
He's back in the game. He wanted the lap earlier on. He didn't quite get it. It hurt big time. And now finally gets his 20 points. And Jordan Villani, he's down in 16th position on 28 points. So he'll only move up a few placings. He won't be anywhere near the medals, but Moriarty certainly will be.
He'll be he's up in 2nd now. So he's catapulted up. He's been given his 20 points. Frisley on 120. Moriarty now on 111. Dietz on 104. Agnoletto on 99. This is an incredible turnaround for Moriarty, who 10 laps ago was sitting in 8th.
And the attacks continue. Moriarty and Villani have just continued on with it, but Oliver Bledden saying, hang on, guys, that's a bit cheeky. Doing the duplet, going for 2 laps in a row. 21 laps to go. Bledden round the outside for South Australia. He's a little bit down in the standings. Bledden sits in 8th place on 84 points. He will pick up the 5 for this one. That is clear. And there's a real race for Henry Dietz and Blake Agnoletto for 2nd and 3rd. Blake gets it over Henry. So the 2 Victorians in 2nd and 3rd. And Declan Tresize, 4th place for him, 1 point.
This is big danger territory for Moriarty. He has been on and off tonight. He's had some incredible moments of brilliance with that lap and with those points. But he is starting to labour a bit. This is him from the earlier break, not now. He isn't on his own. He is in the bunch. But when he swung up, Scott, he came down and ended up having to lead a group because a big gap had opened up. And he was looking like it was really putting him in a whole world of hurt. He needs to hold on to some good wheels so he doesn't go the way of Duffy or Hall. He's up into 2nd for now. He's got to conserve.
Stephen Hall was in the bronze medal position. Unfortunately, losing a lap, minus 20 points when you lose a lap, plus 20 if you gain one, 17 laps to go, and now Hall just off the front with Zach Marriage and Rowan Hayden-Smith. And you can see Josh Duffy, he's in a world of pain, a Tasmanian, just swinging up from the front of the peloton. So hesitation in the peloton. 3 riders, 16 laps to go, just drifting off the front. Graham Frisley, the overall leader, now coming to the front just to marshal the troops, keep the speed of the peloton high, because he's on 120 points and has a 9-point buffer over James Moriarty with 2 sprints to come.
Well, they won't want this break to go purely for the fact that Stephen Hall is in there if he gains that lap back. But these pair, they're only on 31 and 40 points respectively, so we're not too worried about them.
Well, that's been neutralised very quickly by the Tasmanian Josh Duffy. He's had a little bit of recovery. Remember, he only lost the lap because he'd had a crash and didn't get back in with enough time and had to chase the peloton. It wasn't able to be done. So he really has been on fantastic form. It's just that unfortunate situation that he found himself in that puts him down into 6th place on 92 points now. So he's still showing some signs of having some great form in the legs. Just not sure if he's going to be able to recover enough to pick up enough points to get himself right back up there.
It's a tough turn of events for him. The Queenslanders are getting quite well organised. It was a little bit scattergun at the beginning of the race. They were all certainly just seeing where their opportunities could come from, with Walsh, Tresize and Moriarty all fancying themselves, but it looks like they're looking after Moriarty now.
The penultimate sprint, 11 laps to go, and Queensland are organised, as is Graham Frisley, because he's muscled himself right over the top of James Moriarty, and Frisley sits in 2nd position. Walsh, who's going to lead them around the final bend. Frisley and Agnoletto comes over the top as well. Walsh picks it up. Agnoletto with 3 points for 2nd. That's really important because he sits in 4th place, 4 points behind his teammate Henry Dietz. There's a real fight between the Queenslanders for the bronze medal, and if Moriarty, he can't do anything in this last sprint, well, they might snatch his silver as well.
Oof. This is game on between the Victorians and the Queenslanders. We just need to see from Moriarty what we saw from Alex Martin-Wallace in being able to really look after himself and just pull it out in this final sprint.
Jordan Villani is the other Victorian that's already taken a lap. He did that with Moriarty not long ago. He's gone off the front. I mentioned how far down he is in the overall standings. He's still down on 48 points. If he takes this lap, goes to 68, still well out of contention. There's only 7 laps to go. He's been joined by Declan Tresize. Tresize is on 88 points. So if he was to take a lap right now, he'd be in the bronze medal position. But we still have points to come. I don't think they're going to get around in the last 6 laps anyway.
This is a good position for Moriarty to be in, because this will ensure, if this break stays away just for the points, that he doesn't lose his silver medal. He needs to position himself really well around Dietz and Agnoletto, because if it does come back, he needs to be sprinting for his life to hang on to that silver medal.
Tresize now on his own, half a lap in front. He'll come around to get 4 laps to go into the final kilometre. We know the peloton is going to speed up for the final sprint, so I don't expect he's going to get around to take a lap on the field. And we'll be looking between Moriarty, Dietz and Agnoletto to see who exactly is going to come away with these final medals.
Well, he may not take a lap, but he looks to be definitely going to take the points, Scott. He's only a quarter of a lap behind, and the peloton is still not putting the pace on. Poor Josh Duffy has just been caught by him. Trezise looks like he may join the back of the peloton here and take a sneaky 20 points for the effort.
2 laps to go now for Declan Trezise. The peloton is now stringing out. It's going to be tough for him to get on. He almost got there. That was really close. You could see the difference. But at the front, though, it's Agnoletto that's leading Henry Dietz as they go down the back straight. And we know that out in front, Declan Trezise is going to pick up the 10 points for the final sprint. What's going to happen back here, though, because we have Agnoletto doing a big lead out for Henry Dietz. Moriarty's there. Walsh trying to come over the outside now. Walsh is on 102 points in 5th place. He might do something to get himself into the medals now. Walsh comes through to finish second. Agnoletto just holds on for third. 6 points to Walsh, 4 points to Agnoletto. 2 points will go to Henry Dietz.
Well, the Queenslanders have done well. Moriarty will hold on to second. It'll be very close whether did Walsh get up for third or Dietz. We need to wait for these final points to come through for that. But sensational ride, of course, from Graham Frisley. And the whole Victorian team did such a good job.
Well, Frisley holds on to the win. 122 points. Gold medal going to last year's scratch race national champion. So good ride from Graham Frisley. James Moriarty, he was on 112 points, so he didn't pick up any points in the final sprint. Liam Walsh, he picked up 6 points in the final sprint to go to 108, so he won't get over the top of Moriarty for the silver. Dietz, he'll also be on 108 points, and Agnoletto goes from 105 to 109. Agnoletto will get the bronze medal. Fantastic ride from Liam Walsh to finish second, or win the bunch sprint, basically, behind Declan Trezise. So he thought he might have moved right up, but I think Blake Agnoletto will jump over the top of his teammate Henry Dietz. And we're still waiting for the final update. They had put up on the screen the sprint number 9 position, not the final sprint. So they are scrambling just to come up with the calculations. I think there'll be a tie on points and Agnoletto will come away with the bronze. Moriarty will get silver. Frisley has the gold.
I think that was a sensational finish for the Queenslanders, sending a rider up. The results are through.
No.
Scott, no, not quite.
Still not.
False alarm.
Yeah.
But to protect James Moriarty, who ended up not having to do anything but safely get across the line to keep his silver.
Well, there's your winner, Graham Frisley. He didn't have to contend in the last sprint with any challenge. So great ride by Graham Frisley. And unfortunate for Josh Duffy. Big shout out to Josh. He was right in the mix until that crash happened. It was actually Frisley's wheel that he clipped when he went down. So it's unfortunate. And it was nothing untoward in that. It was just Graham was swinging up as Josh came down and touch of wheels. And it really did ruin the race for Josh Duffy. So unfortunate for him. He was coming into that final sprint in 6th place on 92 points after losing a lap, which we know he wouldn't have done had he was able to stay on the bike.
Yeah, that is a frustrating position for him to be in. If he didn't lose the lap, even though he didn't get points in any of those last sprints, he still would have finished with the silver medal or the bronze. It would have been tied between he and Moriarty. So a real bummer for him, a real shame. You don't want, especially an Omnium, it's even more offensive than just a points race because 4 events it has taken to get to this result. And Josh Duffy, a sensational ride. But again, he won the kilo earlier, Scott, the men's 1,000-metre time trial, and in a minute flat.
So this is Declan Trezise coming into the final sprint. Out in front, he got so close to the back of the field, and it would have put him, depending on what happened behind, he might have still been up there in the mix for a medal. And it was Blake Agnoletto that went really early into this final sprint, and I thought maybe he was just looking after Henry Dietz, but he held on. Dietz couldn't get over the top of him in the final sprint. Walsh, the Queenslander, the second Queenslander. Have a look at the speed he was showing. This is around the final bend. There's Walsh going right round the outside. Moriarty didn't have anything left in the legs to try and contest in this final sprint. So with Tresize out in front picking up the 10 points, Walsh picked up the 6. Agneletto just held on for the 4 points, double points in the final sprint, remember, and then Henry Dietz picked up the 2 points for 4th place, with Moriarty not able to gain any. And if my quick maths calculations are correct, then it will be Frizzley, Moriarty and Agneletto just over the top of Henry Dietz.
And then I think Walsh and Dietz will be tied for 4th. I think Walsh will get it, though, because he finished ahead in that final sprint. That's how they do the initial count back.
That's correct. And in all of these races so far, all these bunch races, the point races, things have changed in the last sprint.
Yes,
so it's been really exciting. Well, while we're waiting for confirmation, let's have a quick look at what's coming up in the next couple of weeks here around Brisbane.
The 2022 Brisbane Cycling Festival, presented by King Street, kicks off March 24 to April 14. Experience Australia's only fully closed road inner city bike ride, the Australian Unity Tour to Brisbane. Supported by free family entertainment to the Brisbane showgrounds, including the Active Lifestyle Expo. Across the festival, enjoy world-class racing at AusCycling's Track Nationals and the Oceania Championships. The festival with something for every age and ability. Experience Brisbane on a bike. BrisbaneCyclingFestival.com.
We are not here on this planet to close our eyes to the world.
We are here to go out and experience its many wonders.
Because through our experiences,
We become bigger than ourselves.
travel has the power to shape our world.
And make us whole again.
With 30 hotel brands and endless experiences, where can we take you?
When you don't need to worry, there'll be days like this. When no one's in a hurry, there will be days like this. When all the parts of the puzzle start to look like they fit. My mama told me there'll be days like this. My mama told me there'll be days like this.
Brisbane is rolling out the red carpet for cyclists and their families with the Australian Unity Tour to Brisbane on Sunday, April 10 as part of the Brisbane Cycling Festival. Join me, Osher Ginsberg, and ride exclusive closed roads on the Story Bridge, Mount Cootha and more. Plus, a free community ride and fun run. We're on a mission to raise vital funds for the common good, powering life-changing medical research at the Prince Charles Hospital. Register now at tourtobrisbane.org.
Welcome back to the Meares Velodrome, and we're just waiting for the presentations to wrap up the final night of competition. And the news is that we knew already Graham Frizzley was the gold medalist. James Moriarty held on for the silver, and Blake Agneletto indeed has gone up into the bronze to match the bronze that he picked up in the individual pursuit. Gold medal for him and Graham Frizzley in the team pursuit as well. Liam Walsh moved up a couple of placings with that final sprint up into 4th place. He was equal points with Henry Dietz, but because he crossed the line in the final sprint ahead of Dietz, he came away with 4th place. Declan Tresize, with that final sprint win, put him up into 6th place. So Frizzley, Moriarty and Agneletto, gold, silver and bronze in the elite men's Omnium. A thrilling final we had. So really good to see how they went. And Josh Duffy, in the end, unfortunately finished in 7th place. And he was on 92 points after having that crash. Stephen Hall, who was in the bronze medal position coming into the final event, finished down in 10th place on 62 points. He won the scratch race at the National Championships last year. If you remember, there was a huge crash which included Jensen Plowright, and Frizzley was just ahead of that as they went into the final bend, strong enough, fast enough to hold on to win the gold. And this time round, it's a gold in the team pursuit and also now in the men's Omnium. So great riding by Graham Frisley. Great comeback as well. For those that you are not aware, early last year, he had a terrible training crash in Adelaide in a team pursuit trial and some really serious injuries. It took him quite a few months to get back to full form. So great to see Graham up and going and winning titles. Now I can see a few riders milling around, getting ready for the presentations, just waiting for a few of the dignitaries to get themselves into position. So it won't be too far away from the final presentations of this National Championships, and some of these riders will then be looking to get themselves ready for the Oceania Championships on the weekend. And the endurance track cyclists, they'll be sticking around as well for the Tour de Brisbane, part of the National Road Series NRS calendar. And just some of the early sprints throughout the race. Hotly contested. Some good rides there. There's Graham Frisley with the black helmet at the top of the track. And there's Jordan Villani from Victoria, the former rower. He was in the team pursuit as well. Gold medal to him. Really strong rider. Not the best suited to the bunch races, but when they get deeper into them like this, he was able to go on the attack, pick up a lap gain, extra 20 points for it, but he was a fair way down in the overall standings because of the technical nature of some of the early disciplines. The tempo race, really challenging one, and also the elimination, of course. Position is so important. Kane Richards from Queensland, having a real go on the track. Fairly new to the track cycling, so great to see the big Queenslander having a real go at it. There's the ladies getting ready for the presentations to come. Sophie Ma, fantastic ride from her tonight. Brisbane Cycling Festival, innovation from a couple of years ago, and I must say, in terms of the Tour de Brisbane and the Brisbane Cycling Festival, the last 2 seasons with the COVID pandemic have been really challenging for them. Applaud everybody involved for being able to keep it continuing and back with a bang this year. I can see Graham Frisley in the centre of the shot there with Kate Bates. So not too far from hearing from our National Omnium champion. So let's go down to Kate Bates with Graham Frisley now.
Oh, Graham Frisley, you're not a stranger to gold medals at the National Championships, but this was a bit of an epic one for the gold medal in the Omnium.
Yeah, definitely. This is probably one of the biggest wins that I've had so far, so it's pretty special to have such a quality field here tonight and go out there and really be racing from the gun all the way to the last lap is pretty special.
Yeah, we were kind of cringing in the commentary box watching it play out. When Josh Duffy fell, how did that affect you mentally? Had your race plan going in had anything to do with Josh Duffy and defending, or was it more about riding your own race?
Yeah, Josh is an awesome rider and he's super quick. We saw in the scratch race how fast he was, and even winning the kilo this morning. He's a pretty special rider, so to be dueling it out with him there was pretty cool. Unfortunately, it went the way that it went, but that's racing. It happens. Had to get back on with the job, and yeah, it still wasn't easy. The other boys were putting some pressure on. Jimmy out there took a pretty good lap, and I was on edge there in going into the last sprint because he was in pretty good position. I thought he may have been able to get it, but no, pretty happy.
Yeah, and that's a good point because a lot of the sprints have been, the points races, whether in an Omnium or standalone, have literally been coming down to the last sprint. But you actually had a pretty good buffer for that. So coming into the last sprint, was there any consideration with the Victorians to try and work together and protect? Because the Queenslanders were certainly on the march to try and disrupt an all-Victorian podium, and they did.
Yeah, no, there wasn't really much cooperation there. The boys were both, they got 3rd and 4th, I think, in the end. So they were going for their own race, and that's fair enough.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, sensational ride. I reckon you'll need a bit of recovery after this, but congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Got Oshis in a few days and going back with the boys now. So yeah, it's going to be pretty awesome week coming up of racing. So keen for that.
Thank you very much. Scott?
Certainly was a good ride, and again, you can only feel for Josh Duffy. It's not to say that he would have won it as he continued, but you just don't want to see riders misfortuned in the way that he was. It wasn't a fault of his own, but still showing really good signs. And the time this afternoon in the kilometre time trial for Josh Duffy, he's a team pursuit rider, but riding 1 minute flat, almost breaking the 1 minute barrier in the kilometre time trial during the Omnium rounds early on, and then to come back and be really in gold medal contention for the Omnium overall right up until that crash happened. So Josh is in fine form and a rider that's really pushing hard for selection for the Birmingham Commonwealth Games this year. Only a few moments away from the presentations. Great to see the riders that have come up to put in some fantastic performances this week. Connor Lay stand out in the individual pursuit, riding the 4:10.1, a national record, beating Jack Bobridge's record from 11 years ago. Really fantastic performance. And in this afternoon's program, Christina Clonan rode an Australian all-comers record and national championships record in the 500-metre time trial, a time of 32.9. It was only 1/10 of a second slower than Anna Meares' national record, and Anna set that at the track at Aguascalientes in Mexico, which is at high altitude, super fast velodrome. So Christina Clonan, who made the transition from endurance to sprint a couple of years ago, putting in an incredibly fast time in the 500 metres this afternoon. So really looking forward to seeing how she goes when we get to the Commonwealth Games later this year. Congratulations to Christina. Well, I'm just getting an update on the final results of that. And while we did have Blake Agnoletto in third place, because that's the points he had when they came across the line, there was a mistake in one of the earlier sprints. And unfortunately, Blake has been put back down to 5th place overall. So that's really unfortunate. The under-19 race, Meg Marker from South Australia picking up the bronze medal. Izzy Carnes from Queensland with the silver, and we saw how strong Sophie Meares was. Really fantastic sprinting from her. And Sophie Meares picks up the gold medal. Adds that to the individual pursuit gold as well. She's been so strong this week. The Australian road champion for the under-19s.
Ladies and gentlemen, please show your appreciation for our national champion and medalist.
Sophie finished on 128 points in the under-19 women's Omnium. 6 points was the difference between her and Isabel Carnes. Meg Marker was only 2 points off the silver, so really close between them. And Lucy Stewart on 114 points. She was in 4th place. Now, Lucy was relegated from one of the sprints as well, so that did cost her dearly.
The presentation of the elite women's points race.
The elite women's points race, that is up next for the presentation. And there's Sophie Meares, proudly sporting her national champion's jersey. Another of our points races that things changed in the final sprint. So really competitive. And Amber Pate putting in a fantastic second half of this race to get herself up to 30 points and win the bronze medal. Taking a lap on the field, getting in the points towards the end. And that was enough to claim bronze. Alex Martin Wallace's final sprint was exceptional. First across the line, she went to 34 points, and that gave her the silver medal. But Chloe Moran on 45 points, 11 points ahead of Alex Martin Wallace. She really was the dominant rider in the elite women's points race, taking away the gold medal. After the team pursuit, she then jumped into the third wheel of the women's team's sprint. And they were racing for the bronze medal, which they did think that they had claimed over Victoria. But unfortunately for them, they had an issue with the changeover and then were disqualified. But Chloe Moran, super fast in that third wheel position in the team sprint. Obviously super fast and strong to take out the women's points race.
Ladies and gentlemen, we move on to the presentation of our para-tandem sprint for women. In second place, and winners of the silver medal, Caroline Baird and her pilot, Siobhan.
This is the para-tandem sprint presentation. Caroline Baird picking up the silver medal with her pilot, Siobhan Aerosmith.
In first place, winners of the gold medal.
And the gold medal, that went to Candice Kennedy from South Australia with her pilot, Kelly Fetz. Good riding from Candice Kennedy and Kelly Fettis. Really strong. National selection up for grabs for them.
Ladies and gentlemen, please show your appreciation for our national champions and medalists.
Next presentation to come out will be the para-tandem sprint.
Ladies and gentlemen, we move forward to our para-tandem sprint men's.
And for the elite men's within the para program. Great to see Shane Perkins, as I've mentioned, pilot on the tandem for the first time, along with Stephen Kemp. And in third place was Kevin O'Malley and Richard Volbrecht. Richard, the pilot, Kevin O'Malley, the stoker. They pick up the bronze medal. Southern Highlands Cycling Club.
In second place, and winners of the silver medal.
The silver medal, that went to South Australia. Bo Wooten. And the pilot was Luke Zachariah. First time at the championships for this pairing. Stephen Kemp, he'll be happy indeed to have partnered up with Shane Perkins. Gold medal to them. Kemp based in South Australia. Shane Perkins now based out of Western Australia. He is a proud Victorian. Did have some time in Brisbane. And then now, of course, in Western Australia. He and Christine, business owners, doing very well in the fitness field. And I think he's going to have to manage his time a little bit more now, because with the performances that Stephen and Shane have put on here at the championships, they might need to do a little bit more training, because the Commonwealth Games and perhaps Paris Paralympics might be in their sights.
Ladies and gentlemen, please show your appreciation for our national champions and medalists.
Para-tandem men's sprint final. Kevin O'Malley with the bronze medal alongside Richard Volbrecht. Silver medal goes to Bo Wooten and Luke Zachariah. And Stephen Kemp, along with Shane Perkins, taking out gold.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Junior 19 men's scratch race presentation. In third place, winner of the bronze medal, representing Victoria.
The under-19 men's scratch race. And Taryn Cook backing up his Omnium gold medal with a bronze. And he's from Victoria. And of course, the Queenslander Tyler Tompkinson has been impressive this week. Super strong winning gold in the points race and in the Madison. But a late moment attack, perfectly timed and with enough power and speed to finish it off. Leo Zimmerman from South Australia wins the under-19 men's scratch race.
Please show your appreciation for our national champion and medalist.
Every one of the bunch races have had fantastic finales. So good to see Leo Zimmerman take the opportunity and then have the ability to finish it off. Queensland got organised to try and bring him back, and Tyler Tompkinson not quite able to get there. Taryn Cook, fast finisher, very smart rider indeed, was able to follow Tompkinson, couldn't get over the top. So Zimmerman, Tompkinson and Cook. On to the elite men's Omnium. Final discipline was the points race. After the scratch race, tempo, the elimination, and then the points race. It was Liam Walsh with a fantastic finish at the end, picking up the 6 points in the final sprint for second place. That moved him right up into second place. Into third place, I should say. James Moriarty, he was on again, off again, and then at the end he was on again because he got the silver on 112 points, with Graham Frisley holding on to win the gold. Minor points in the final sprint for Graham Frisley, picked up 2 for fourth place. He didn't need them in the end, but he was, as we heard in the interview, a little bit desperate coming into that final sprint. He wasn't sure what Moriarty was capable of. So Graham Frisley from Victoria picks up the gold medal in the elite men's Omnium points race at the end. James Moriarty from Queensland with silver, and Liam Walsh from Queensland as well. So Victoria in the Queensland sandwich. And once again, more Queenslanders on the podium at the National Championships. I grew up racing here in Queensland, so really happy to see how many of them are really progressing since the construction of the Meares Velodrome. And I can hear in the background that the Victorian team have won the overall tally for the most number of points at the championship. So they do a tally across all the categories. And at the end, it was Victoria that became the champion state. And I can see from where the Victorians are, they're at the far end of the track here on the inside. They hadn't been told until just now, so it might take them a couple of minutes to make their way across to the podium. Photo opportunity now for Graham Frisley. And there's a few of the Victorians making their way across. So we'll have that shot pretty soon. But in the meantime, I know that Kate Bates is down in the centre, so there's a couple of riders that we'll get to hear from in just a moment. I think she's with Chloe Moran. What a big week she's had. Another rider that's looking for the Birmingham Commonwealth Games within the Team Pursuit program, and a few bunch races there as well that she could really do well in. Well, let's go down to Kate with Chloe Moran.
Oh, Chloe Moran, that was an incredible ride, looking resplendent in the green and gold.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really happy with that gold. I got the gold in the points race last year as well, so I was super stoked to defend that title.
And the South Australians came in with such a dominant team into that race. Did you all get to just ride your own race? Were you trying to work together? We had several different versions in our heads in the commentary box.
Yeah, it was definitely ride our own race. Obviously be respectful as teammates, but given we had such a big field, we did want to all sort of give everyone an opportunity to have their own race as well.
And you've been developing incredibly the last couple of years. the points race is always a bit of a jewel in the crown. You've had a really consistent week. Is your form building up now to Oceanias? Because if this is where you're starting from, there could be a very big week ahead.
Yeah, I actually missed the whole summer of cycling out with COVID and then a few heart issues, so I had to have a month off the bike recently. So I've just been consistently building my form since then, and this is sort of the first racing back since coming back from COVID, and I'm just keen to build the form throughout the season, yeah.
Yeah, wow. I mean, we didn't realise you'd had those issues, and that makes it even more impressive, seeing what you did out on track. So did you go out there with any confidence? You were defending from last year, but obviously it's been a different lead-in.
Yeah, it has been a different lead-in. I mean, we have a great group behind us, and so this is definitely like a step in the works to more competitions later in the year. But it was good to see that it's still coming along well.
And have you got Birmingham in your eyes?
Yeah, well, we do have all a really strong team, and it's definitely something, we're all striving for. So who knows?
Oh, well, good luck and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Well, she has had a fantastic week, that's for sure, and Birmingham, I'm sure, will come calling. And it may depend a little bit on which of the Tokyo Olympian track endurance riders are still available. So many of them have gone into the World Tour on the road. Georgia Baker, Alex Manley, and so whether they're able or willing to come back into the program. And we touched base with Brett Aiken up here today as well, talking a little bit about that. And I know they're in a lot of communication with the professional teams to try and make those riders available for the Commonwealth Games, the World Championships. Of course, I think it's important for those World Tour road riders to get the strength and the career future on the road, but also touch base with the track. Don't be away from it for too long, so when they do step back for Paris potentially, they don't have so much to catch back up on. But a great opportunity for Chloe Moran, that's for sure. Well, it has been a fantastic competition. 5 days here at the Meares Velodrome in Brisbane. AusCycling's Track National Championships. Next up is the Oceania Championships on the weekend. Then it's the Tour de Brisbane. The road racing starts for the National Road Series. And on behalf of Kate Bates and myself, Scott McGrory, thanks for tuning in. It's been a fantastic competition. Cannot wait until we get back out there on the track for the next one.